everybody. Welcome back to the Who Cares Anyway podcast. We are live. It is Friday night. And, I would say tonight's going to be action-packed. It's going to be exciting. There's going to be a lot of conversation. But you know what? No. Tonight, we're going to take it a little easy. And we are going to dive into something that's really cool that we all like to talk about. But, that's because next week there's something a little more important coming. And Ryan, as the first member of the panel tonight, would you agree with that? That next week, when there's a certain little convention going on in Chicago, maybe that's a little bit more exciting than this week?
Yeah, just by default. But hey, that doesn't mean tonight isn't going to be freaking awesome anyway. So let's just do it, man. Let's make this better. Why can't it be better? Let's do it.
Absolutely. Exactly. And let's make this better indeed. And also with me tonight, we've got Nico Regoli. Nico, what's up, man? And how's your week been?
It is WrestleMania week, my friend. So therefore, there's like something wrestling related on every day of the week. Right now, NXT TakeOver is going on, and I had to pause it to do this podcast, but I look forward to seeing the rest of the matches as soon as we're done here. But I'm still happy for a great conversation that we're going to have tonight.
And I do apologize that I have to pull you from such an important historic event. But I think you'll forgive me in due time. Is that a fair assessment?
Hey, as long as nobody spoils the matches remaining for me, I'll be fine. And I don't have the chat up. I don't have the video up on YouTube. So thankfully, I won't be looking at any potential spoilers as we do this discussion.
Well, and it's funny to say it because now Ryan and I actually have to do a little bit of that on our own because, Ryan, you talked me into doing something today, which I was actually quite happy to do because I saw a movie this week. I saw 6 movies this week, actually, which is the most I've ever done in a week, and I don't know if I'll ever do that again.
That's a stretch right there. That's a slog.
But one of those movies I saw was directed by a certain funny man by the name of Jordan Peele, who... Refresh me, Ryan. Doesn't he also have a show on CBS All Access?
He does. He's producing, he's helped writing, and he's hosting the brand new Twilight Zone. Yes.
You're entering another dimension.
He is the best choice to host this.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that.
Let's talk about it, shall we? So
let's.
And I'm mostly just to talk about the first episode, which is the only one that I've seen so far. But I know you saw the second one, so I'll let you get in some thoughts about that. But let's just shoot the shit for just a moment on The Comedian, the pilot episode, which stars one of the funniest people working today, Kumail Nanjiani, as this comedian who is struggling to find his identity, find his voice. But he comes across Tracy Morgan. And side note, Tracy Morgan is fucking great in this episode.
I was not expecting his role, but it was really nice.
It was amazing. And so then, Tracy Morgan just basically gives him an ultimatum. Either you're going to be successful, but you're going to lose everything, or you're going to have everything, but you won't be successful. And through some very interesting twists and turns, I love the direction that the show went. So, Ryan, what were your thoughts on The Comedian?
So it was really cool to see just the thing that I like about Black Mirror and Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, which is on Amazon Prime, is that you're getting good sci-fi in anthology form in the modern day that's very obviously inspired by The Twilight Zone. But what is amazing about The Twilight Zone, the original Rod Serling series, is that it wasn't all sci-fi. There was horror elements and there was human interest elements, and there was just a lot going on that wasn't pure sci-fi. And some of the horror episodes are the best known episodes.
Terror at 20,000 feet.
Exactly.
The one with a very babyface Robert Redford as Death.
Yeah. Eye of the Beholder. So there's so many good episodes that have nothing to do with the future necessarily. And so that is what the comedian is it's just a creepy story about a comedian who has a huge decision to make, his career over everything else in his life. And it's masterfully done, I think. There might be a little thing here or there. I mean, nothing is ultimately perfect, but it gets pretty close for a pilot for something that hasn't been successful in decades, because none of the other reboots were that successful.
Yeah, because like you think back to something like the 1983 film reboot, and sure, most of the pieces in there were pretty good. I mean, I know Spielberg's was pretty good. I'm blanking on who else was a part of that right now. Sorry, guys.
John Landis was a big
John
one.
Landis, yep. And guys, refresh me in the chat if you're down there. Who else was involved with that project? But Kees. And well, speaking of, I see him in the chat, but he's actually not on the call because his lovely lady is with him from the Ukraine, and they wanted to take tonight off. Not a problem at all.
Can't blame him.
Can't blame him, because plus next week it's gonna be a damn party here.
Woo! Ugh.
But
Can't wait.
Absolutely. So yeah, and then I think Twilight Zone tried again like the early 2000s, and it couldn't
with
take
Forrest
off.
Whitaker, and it never just went anywhere, and I haven't even bothered to watch it. But I've always, like, ever since I was a kid, my dad used to, TiVo the episodes, and we would watch them, and I was just the coolest thing to me as someone who is a fan of horror and sci-fi. So yeah, it's just nice to see a break from the Black Mirror, everything's horrible. Like this goes in a slightly different direction. And so great performances, really, really good writing. And when I saw that the runtime was 55 minutes, I was like, whoa, that's kind of a surprise. That seems like it might be a bit of a stretch, but it works.
I was about to, and the one thing I truly loved about it was the pacing. The pacing to me felt just right in every regard. So now take a minute to talk about the second episode, which you saw and I didn't.
Right. So the second episode stars Adam Scott, and it's it's terror at 30,000 feet now, because planes can go higher. Ooh. And it's really beyond him being on a plane and nobody believes him for the what he's saying is going to happen or is happening.
Right.
There's really not that much of a similarity, but it is a really interesting story how they updated it for the 21st century. And the ending takes like a weird turn that doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite stick that landing, but overall the episode is really good, and you still get some chills throughout it. And,
I was about to say, kind of like my thoughts on a certain film from earlier this year, huh? Oh, snap.
Which would be?
Us.
Oh, yeah. Another Jordan Peele
adventure,
yeah. So, but that's kind of how it is. It's like so much is built up, and then once you get the payoff, it just doesn't quite hit it. It takes the stretch that it wants you, the leap that it wants you to take is just a little too much. But based off of these two, we get the next episode on April 11th, and you'd best believe that I'm going to be watching it, because I'm very interested to see how the rest of this, they do like a, coming up on the rest of the season. And a lot of these episodes look really intriguing. So, and there's a lot of, big names attached to a lot of the other episodes. So
I was just saying, I remember seeing that from the trailer, and I'm just like, holy crap, this is quite a cast. I don't know how they assembled this, but, Nico, do you have any thoughts about any questions you want to ask about the Twilight Zone, or do you just want us to get into the movie news?
So, my thoughts on this Twilight Zone. The only thing I've seen so far is the Super Bowl commercial for the show, and Jen Kemp, a new Schmodown competitor who we're all great friends with, she had a tweet in relation to that Super Bowl commercial that encapsulated a lot of my feelings when I found out a lot about this new Twilight Zone reboot. And it says, Twilight Zone reboot. Jordan Peele is hosting it. What? This is cool. It's on CBS All Access. Aww.
Ah.
And thankfully this pilot episode is on YouTube. It's kind of like it's like a sample platter for to that they have in the grocery stores, where like, here, you want some cheese? Try this. Now pay for the whole thing if you want more. That's essentially what we're getting here with the YouTube deal. And I'll check out this first episode of the Twilight Zone reboot when there's not a million things wrestling related happening on my TV.
Fair enough. But okay, and that's awesome. That's awesome. And Ryan, do you have any final thoughts on these first 2 episodes you want to lay down?
I just want to say that having Jordan Peele, he is just perfect. Like, he pulls off the creepy narrator role, like knowing, but like he's hiding something from you, and he knows what's going to happen, but you don't. It's hard to quite explain, but he takes over for Rod Serling really well. So I'm happy that he was the impetus behind getting the Twilight Zone brought back.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I think he's the perfect choice for it. Now, my one worry, and this is a legitimate worry that I hope it has no validation. For as much as the Twilight Zone is known for being, sci-fi and horror and really creepy and terrifying, it also had a lot of heart to it.
True.
And one of my favorite episodes, funny enough, is the one with the Santa Claus guy.
Yes.
That's honestly that episode hurts me. That's how powerful it is. And it hurts me in the best way. So I want there to be episodes in this show that can have the same effect on me. And I'm just worried that because we do live in kind of a new cynical age, we're not going to get that. And that does worry me a little bit.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I don't know if we'll see anything like that in the this season, just because they're trying to grab everyone's attention. But if it's able to come back for a second season, I wouldn't be surprised if we see, because Jordan Peele has talked about how much he loves the Twilight Zone and how, basically all of the episodes have had impacts in him in different ways. So I would assume that I can't say for sure that he loves that episode, but I would guess that he probably has just as much appreciation as everyone else does for it. So,
yeah, of course. So with that, let's move on. Let's hop into some movie news that broke out this week. Now, a lot of the news this week is coming more from CinemaCon, but there was one piece that I wanted to catch that didn't come directly out of CinemaCon that I really want to talk about, and that is the Joker trailer. Now, Ryan and I did a reaction for this, but Nico, sadly, you were a little busy doing your show where you talk about geek stuff to talk about it. So I do want to actually get your opinion on camera real fast. What did you think of the Joker trailer?
So I think both myself and Zaddia Smith, who is my broadcast partner over on Crisis on Earthplex, which is on every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Multiplex Entertainment.
Shameless plug.
We did discuss this the trailer, and we both came to the conclusion that we thought it wasn't one of those trailers that blows you out of the water, but there's a lot in it that makes you curious as to what's going on and makes you want to see it. Especially considering we've heard from the Joker lore, the story of how all it takes is for Batman to have one bad day and he will turn into the Joker in a sense. He will snap and he will become the very thing he has been fighting for the majority of his career. And in this case, we see that the Joker, he's had one too many bad days and it just forced him to snap and turn into this persona that Joaquin Phoenix is portraying on screen in this trailer. Now they kind of went away from the typical origin we're used to of falling into the vat, and that's how he gets the white skin. Instead, it's just, again, as I said before, too many experiences with people just pushing his buttons to the point that it just caused him to lose it. And so then he just paints it on, dyes his hair green, and you see the metamorphosis of him going from this down on his luck comedian who's slouched over all the time, and just the more he snaps and turns into the Joker, the more he feels so carefree and just loosens up and just lets it all go to chaos because that's what relaxes him in that state of his mind. So I think we're in for something interesting. It's just a matter of good interesting, bad interesting. I will say this, though. Joaquin Phoenix, is he just always creepy looking?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, especially in films like Gladiator, where he just looks at peak creepiness, and hence kind of why I don't like the film. But no, but it's funny you bring that up because Ryan and I pretty much said the exact same thing.
Basically,
where we don't know if it's going to be the best comic book movie since Logan, but it's certainly going to be the most interesting, potentially. Like we're both very much intrigued to go see the movie, and now that and it's kind of funny because I've been mulling it over in my head the last couple of days, and the intrigue just doesn't go away.
Right.
Like I've gone back and seen the trailer back a couple times. And I'm trying to pick up some new details, and there's all this stuff there that I'm just like, ooh, I can it just be October already, please?
Well, and I think the intrigue has a lot to do with the fact that like it's another Batman-inspired movie being made by someone who's not typically known for associating with comic book stuff. Like the Nolan trilogy, the appeal was Nolan was making it, and he was making it in a realistic way to the universe we live in, and the adapting something fictional for the world we live in. And in this case, Scorsese, he has his own way of doing things, and it's interesting to see, like, you know,
well, to be fair, Scorsese's only producing.
Oh, well, who's directing?
Todd Phillips, the director of The Hangover.
But that still carries over because it's not like he's known for doing this either. So
yeah,
exactly. Like they're going away from some of the comic booky stuff we're used to, like the vat of acid that he falls into that turns him into the comic book villain that we're known for. They're just telling a story of a guy who got his buttons pushed one too many times and lost it.
So, in a sense, he's kind of like a comic book version of Taxi Driver, and because I happen to love Taxi Driver, I'm very excited for that. Ryan, are you still on the excitement train with me, or?
Yeah, really the only thing that has changed in my thoughts since we did the trailer review reaction, rather, you guys should definitely go watch that on this same channel. But I think, really the only thing that has changed is I don't mind as much anymore that we're getting an origin story to the Joker, because I'm thinking of it as just completely different. Like, I'm at the point now where there's so many incarnations of the Joker. I realized the other day, I was like, I don't even think of them all as the same character. Yeah. And I'm about to be the same way with Batman, because we've had so many incarnations of him. I'm almost to the point where I don't even think of them as the same character. So I don't think of this as the Joker that we know and love. This is something completely different, and that's why I think I'm okay with seeing an origin story.
It's funny you mention that, because in the comics now, they've kind of leaned into, like, there being multiple Jokers. They have 3 different Jokers running around in, like, the same universe ever since the New 52 run sort of ended and they did the Rebirth stuff. So, there's a lot of room for interpretation, because the DC likes to do multiple versions of multiple characters that are beloved and just see which one. They give something for everybody, and that's the appeal of comic books, is the multiversal aspect. And in this case, we're getting a new version of the Joker told by some really talented storytellers.
Well, plus that was their way of kind of showcasing each era of the Joker, because, you know, if you remember, from like Golden Age, gangster, like love to shoot people left and right willy-nilly, no problem. Silver Age, he was a prankster, he was a literal Joker, and he didn't really kill anybody. And then you have Modern, who is just full-blown psychopath and has no remorse for his actions. So, you know, it's bottom line, I'm just looking forward to it. And I'm not a guy who likes Joaquin Phoenix. And
really?
I'm saying I'm looking forward to it.
I don't understand it. I do not understand you.
It's kind of for the same reason I don't love Russell Crowe.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get you. I don't get that either. So, hey, you're entitled to your opinion.
Even if if it's wrong. Yes, exactly. But so as we move on from Joker and DC, because we'll be coming back to that in a little bit. But let's start off with some of the highlights from CinemaCon, starting off with Rian Johnson. We know him. Some of us like him. Some of us like various films of his to certain degrees. You know, and if you're a troll online, you think he ruined your childhood. Sure, why not? But I remember when we first got news of his upcoming film Knives Out. We talked about some of the cast that was in the movie, and we were excited. Now we're finally given the plot details, and I'm really excited for this movie. So the basic premise is Jamie Lee Curtis and Don Johnson play as husband and wife, where the patriarch of their family, played by Christopher Plummer, has passed away. Now, her kids, including Chris Evans, now I'm actually blanking on who some of the other actors are. Shoot.
I'm looking at the same thing as you. The cast list has Daniel
Lakeith
Craig,
Stanfield, Michael Shannon, Toni Collette, and Catherine Langford, especially with Ana de Armas and Daniel Craig. What the hell? This is a cast. Stacked cast. And so then, while all the funerals and stuff is going down, there's some shady shit happening. Especially once our detectives, Craig and Lakeith Stanfield, show up. And yeah, this is going to be a bloodbath, and I'm going to love every minute of it. Ryan, does it sound like something up your alley?
Yeah, I love crime dramas, basically. Goodfellas is like top 5 movies of all time. So, and yes, while that's a different era, still the premise of criminals doing crime stuff, it's basically the same, man. You know, and Rian Johnson, I do really like his movies. Let nobody be confused about that, because Looper is still just
stupid good.
so good. Like, if you can do that with time travel, like the amount of writing intensity and like care that takes. So yeah, I think that if you can draw this kind of cast, you've at least got something worthwhile. I don't think it's going to be a total, flop. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he can do outside of the sci-fi, because he's done 2 sci-fi films back to back. I think it'll be interesting to see him go back to
sort of his roots.
Yeah, with Brick, exactly. Thank you. So.
And and Nico, you're hearing about this story, you're hearing about this cast, and you realize that this is the last film that he's going to do before he gets into his Star Wars trilogy. True. What are some of your thoughts about potentially seeing this movie, Knives Out?
Well, you mentioned this could be his last film before he becomes all Star Wars all day, all the time. And I think this would be an excellent send-off for him from a non-franchise movie.
For the time being, anyway.
For the time being. I really like the sound of this plot. It sounds like a dark crime thriller meets Death at a Funeral. And just...
Yes!
And the appeal of this cast, especially Jamie Lee Curtis, because Jamie Lee Curtis is known for accepting the most unique roles that you throw at her. I'm still a big fan of hers from when she did the Scream Queen series on Fox, and I wish they had kept that series going because it was so good.
But wait, Nico, that was a horror show.
There are exceptions to the rule. That was one of them. Because they balanced it with a lot of comedy in it, and it was a horror series that didn't really take itself so seriously. Now, if it were like American Horror Story, then I would be less inclined to watch it for the reasons that I've specified, my not liking horror very much. But if you can do a series that doesn't really take itself seriously but has horror-inspired elements to it, then I will watch it. And in this case, I feel like this film that we're talking about right now, Knives Out, it falls into that same category of it will have horror elements to it. It will not be a straight-up horror thing because it's more so a crime thriller, and that will get me to watch it, especially with this cast, with this premise, and with, again, having mentioned a movie that I like, that being Death at a Funeral, and this sounding like a unique twist on that.
Exactly, and, just like with Ryan... Well, just like with our Ryan Johnson is one of my favorite storytellers in modern cinema. So I genuinely think that this is the right kind of project for him to tackle. And of course, I'm fucking looking forward to this. Are you kidding me? This is gonna be great. Unlike a certain thing coming this year. Now, okay. Jennifer Hudson, I think you are incredibly talented. You are one of the best singers to come out of American Idol, and you damn well know it, woman. Your voice is like hearing angels sing. But not even your angelic, majestic voice can save my ears from recognizing the suck that is Andrew Lloyd Webber when, for as part of promotion for Cats, which is coming out later this year, you guys you performed Memory, and yeah, that's a cute song. I get it. Everyone loves to play it at like graduation or a funeral or a wedding or yada yada yada. But that's not what's pissing me off. I want you guys to listen to this song just to, sort of give me an idea of what to expect from the movie. But get a load of this. So there's going to be a new type of motion capture that they're using to make this film possible. Now, what do I mean by that? They're going to do traditional mocap where they have sensor balls all over the face, and they're going to create the movements. But they're going to literally put cats' faces on the actors using digital fur.
I have a feeling it's going to look like Chamber of Secrets when Hermione gets turned into a cat. But worse, maybe.
If only. And you want to know what the worst part is? That's going to look better than anything in this fucking movie. I can promise you that.
Can you imagine Taylor Swift with a cat's face?
I thought she already had one. Hey-oh!
Just with that description that you've given me there, I'm already picturing some very bad CGI going on.
And it's going to be very bad CGI, so don't you worry about that, Nico.
But, I mean, it's still being directed by Tom Hooper. He's not a lightweight. So.
He's not a lightweight, but...
Here's the thing. If you can do good practical makeup, then do it.
Just do it.
Don't waste time on motion capture that's going to look bad from the get-go.
For God's sake,
but
okay.
Will it, though? You don't know that it will. I mean, have you seen War for the Planet of the Apes?
Have you seen the hair they did in Aquaman?
Yeah, that's not War for the Planet of the Apes, though.
Well, and sadly, as far as I'm aware, the people who did the effects for War for the Planet of the Apes aren't working on cats.
I mean, that doesn't mean, though, that the technology hasn't progressed. It's about the money and the time and the effort that you put into it.
And of course it has. I mean, and for all I know, Cats could be one of the greatest looking musicals of all time, or it could look like Zoobilee Zoo. We'll just have to find out.
Zoobilee Zoo.
I think the source material, goodness gracious, that is based off of in the first place is where you're either gonna make it or break it. And I am not a fan of Cats. I love Phantom of the Opera so much. Phantom of the Opera is amazing, and in my opinion, basically a perfect musical. So hats off to Andrew for that. But Cats is basically trash.
Oh yes.
So I'm not really sure why Tom Hooper goes from Les Mis, which even his version of Les Mis isn't really that impressive. It was good, but it wasn't that.
Look, sorry to harp on this actor again, but if you take out Russell Crowe and you put in a singer who's more capable for opera,
and kind
then
of
I forgive
Hugh Jackman too. No offense, because
and Jackman actually put Jackman in the Javert role, and then get another actor to play Jean Valjean, and that would have worked.
I would have accepted that more
because Russell Crowe is a rock singer. He's not made for Broadway.
Right, and the thing is they chose to record the audio on set as opposed to more recently The Greatest Showman, where they were able to tweak it how they needed to in studio, and it sounded overall better. But you have Amanda Seyfried, Eddie Redmayne, the girl who played the brunette girl. I don't remember that actress' name. Anne Hathaway. No, not her. The younger girl. Yeah, whatever her name is. Yeah. She's incredible. She's like the best voice in the entire musical. So you have Anne Hathaway. Yeah, she did all right too, I guess. But I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, she didn't win an Oscar or anything.
We're talking about Cats, and I just think it's a bad idea overall. Out of all the musicals out there, like,
I mean, hell, I would have happily taken if you have to do Weber, which already kills me, but if you have to do Weber,
I don't know why you hate him so much.
He's terrible. He has no
Phantom of the Opera. Are you kidding me?
Okay, really read the lyrics sometime. Those lyrics are corny. They're terrible.
I mean, it was the 80s, so there's that.
It was, well, and also, to be fair, Ryan, I think the 80s is kind of overrated in everything.
Yeah, but it's the Phantom of the Opera. Anyway, I'm not going to change your mind.
And you know what? To be fair, real quick, the music of Phantom of the Opera is awesome. I have to give you that.
It's so good.
It's so good. Especially if you're listening to like a metal version with some like sick guitars
True.
and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah.
Dude.
True.
Okay.
You're not wrong.
All right.
Cats,
sorry.
Right? My bad.
Right. Sorry, Nico. Sorry, everybody, for that.
Who cares about Andrew Lloyd Webber anyway?
Oh my God, that would be a fun show.
I'll say this to justify the rants you guys just went on. I like musicals. I just don't see enough of them, at least on screen. I have seen a lot of plays, and I do enjoy a good song and dance number every now and then. It's just haven't seen a lot of them on screen in a while. I think the last one I saw might have been Pitch Perfect 3, which, by the way, my late dad was a big fan of the Pitch Perfect franchise.
Those movies are good. I like them.
They're fun.
Anyway.
I like them.
They are good. They are fun.
Absolutely. All right. Next story, and we're gonna move this along a little bit more quickly. I'm essentially gonna take a couple of these last stories and sort of combine them into one.
Sounds good.
So first off, we have a name for the next Terminator movie, and I don't like it. Terminator Dark Fate?
Is this a YA novel?
Yeah, that's kind of my question. You know it's bad when a TV show, The Sarah Connor Chronicles, is a much better name than Dark Fate? Hell, I would have taken that as the title. That would have been awesome.
Terminator X-Files. Like, oh my gosh.
It's like, oh man, Dark Fate. Like, ugh.
Schwarzenegger shows up with eyeliner.
Nah, right. No, and then we got some publicity photos of Arnold, and apparently people at the con got to see footage, and of course, luckily nobody leaked it. So good job, CinemaCon. But fuck you, CinemaCon. I want to see some of that footage. But also, as was announced many months back, Linda Hamilton, who is coming back, said something very interesting about Terminators 3 through 5, where she said they were forgettable and not very good, which, last I recall, didn't James Cameron sign off on Terminator Genesis shit and say that it was just as good as Terminator 2?
He's just being nice.
Yeah. Let's be fair. He was just trying to play kiss ass, because he also said Force Awakens was a pile of dicks, and I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, sir. Go make your crappy Avatar sequels that nobody wants. Oh, I play that.
I was gonna say, are you gonna throw it to Nico or something?
I was gonna say, yeah, no. Nico, what are your thoughts on the name of the newest Terminator movie and Linda Hamilton's comments?
Okay, hot take. I don't give zero shits about the Terminator franchise, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people in this community that we frequent in are aware that I have some issues with films that are centered around cyborgs. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule, but mostly Terminator, RoboCop, The Matrix, stuff like that. Things that combine organics with technology, they creep me the fuck out. And the reason for that is because of the Terminator ride at Universal Studios, when 10-year-old me, who did not know what the Terminator was about, was like, can we go on that ride? And then 5 minutes in, I see a lady with glowing eyes and a metal skull, and her hands suddenly turned into blades, and 10-year-old me ran out the emergency exit crying within 5 minutes. And from then on, I was traumatized by by cyborgs for life. Again, there are some exceptions to the rule. Darth Vader, General Grievous, and Cyborg from DC Comics being a few of them. But the rest, they creep the ever-loving shit out of me. So I will never watch a Terminator movie for as long as I live, simply because I don't want to relive that trauma I experienced as a child. The title itself sounds shitty, and even if it sounded better, that still wouldn't get me to the theater to watch it, because I have still not recovered from that childhood trauma.
See, poor Nico. The worst thing that happened to me when I was 10 years old was I saw Clockwork Orange.
Damn, dude. Oh my gosh.
Okay, that fucked me up.
Wow, no, that explains so much. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you, man.
Yeah, fair enough. But no, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
The name is so bad.
Oh my God.
Like, I saw it before you even sent me the show notes. I had already seen it on Twitter. I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, what are we doing? This is ridiculous. The first thing I thought was YA novel. Like, out of all the things you could possibly call it, just like, call it Terminator again. Like, we're doing this again. And you know it's not going to be good. I'm sorry. It's just not. There's no way it's going to be better than either of the first two. And Nico, that's actually, I feel bad for you, to be honest, because it is a little unfortunate, because the first two Terminator movies are amazing.
I don't care. I don't care if they're amazing.
Like,
I don't want to watch. I don't want to see metal skulls. I don't want to see glowing red eyes coming out of organic human beings. I don't want to see that shit.
I know. But if you weren't traumatized for life, I think you'd really like them, because they're good. Especially the final scene of the first Terminator. The special effects in that for the era in which it was made is just, it blows me away still to this day at how good they look. But anyway, that's not what basically, I agree with Linda that these other Terminator movies are forgettable, because I haven't even bothered to watch them. I've seen Terminator and Terminator 2 Judgment Day, because those are the ones that my dad said were good. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to watch these ones. And I've never heard a positive word about any of the others. So I'm like, why bother? I don't have enough time in the day to waste on crappy movies. So if this one comes out and by some miracle people are like, oh, it's the next best thing since sliced bread, then yeah, sure, I'll go see it. But I'm pretty doubtful that we're going to, because again, like we said, the last one was supposed to be the Terminator salvation, but it never was. Didn't save anything. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Them's my thoughts.
Them's thoughts indeed. Well, you know, there were a couple of things that came out of CinemaCon, like Sonic the Hedgehog. But to be honest, if I don't have any actual footage to pull up, so it's like, you know what, I don't want to go off crowd reaction for that one. So, with that, guys, we're going to take a short break, and then as soon as we get back, school will be in session, and then I'm going to take the class through a little journey that starts in 1966 and ends in 2013. So don't go anywhere. Now we're going to put this over to, I guess, me, who will give you guys 6 reviews in about 6 minutes. Enjoy. Well, thanks, me. But, yeah, so, guys, I'm here to do about 6 reviews in roughly 6 minutes for the 6 movies I saw in theaters this week, starting off with Jordan Peele's Us. His second film, after directing the Oscar-winning Get Out. It stars Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke. They're this couple that go out to their cabin. And while they're out there, some very strange things start happening to them and their family, and it gets very intense very quickly, and that's actually how I like it. I like the intensity. I like the performances across the board. I like the action because it's very creative with what it's able to do. My only issue is that I personally feel the last 2 minutes of the script completely undermine what is the message of the movie and how it tackles the themes of trauma. But I'll need to see it again, because much like any great David Lynch film, which Us very feels inspired by, I'll need to rewatch it and see if time and a fresh perspective can give my perspective a fresh change. Which then I'm going to lead into my next quick thoughts on The Mustang, which is the latest film from Laurie de Clermont-Tonnerre, starring Matthias Schoenaerts and Jason Mitchell. Essentially, the movie is a mix of The Shawshank Redemption and Black Beauty, one of those being an underrated 90s gem and one of those films being one of the greatest films of all time. So if you're going to take inspiration from anywhere, they picked some very good choices to go with. One of the things that I have to say is that the relationship between Matthias Schoenaerts and his horse, Marquis, or as he pronounced it, Marcus, is very touching, and it's very sweet and sentimental. It's definitely a good time. If you're able to watch it, I recommend seeing it, because I got a feeling this movie will either be completely forgotten by award season, or it will be boosted when award season comes around. Which then leads me to the next film in this series, The Beach Bum. The latest film from Harmony Korine, who did Spring Breakers, so he's known for very crazy and satirical more kind of films. And this film stars Matthew McConaughey, Snoop Dogg, Isla Fisher, and Jimmy Buffett as himself. I can describe this movie as a train wreck in the best way possible. Think like The Big Lebowski if it was a lot more grounded in reality. Because you take away some of the surreal dream sequences from The Big Lebowski and you get The Beach Bum. And one of the reasons I also really love this movie is that it's very charmingly optimistic. And in an era where things seem a lot more cynical, it's very refreshing to see a movie that comes at itself with that much sense of purpose. And it's that sort of cynicism that I think a lot of people feel about Dumbo, the latest film from Tim Burton with Danny DeVito, Michael Keaton, Colin Farrell, and Eva Green, who across the board, all four of them give very solid performance. Sure, Keaton is over the top, but you want that from your villain. Colin Farrell plays a great role as the straight man, and Danny DeVito is very relatable as the guy who was just trying to keep his circus alive. I will say Dumbo himself as a visual effect is cute and is very well done. I can't say about most of the other effects for the film. Some of the shots look really bad, if I'm being completely straightforward here. And the kid actors, like, I can tell they're trying, but the performances a lot of times comes across as stale. So it's kind of a take it or leave it with Dumbo. I liked it, but not everyone will. Another movie I saw finally about 2 months too late is Lego Movie 2, the second part. What I will say, essentially there are two big points in this movie without giving anything away. The movie is great at continuing the story from the first part. It really is good at, continuing the story that was set from the end of the first one and now setting up this new one. And the jokes, while are still inventive and still give me a lot of laughs, they're just not as funny as they were in the first Lego movie. Like, a lot of the jokes you can start to see coming now. So take it or leave it with Lego Movie 2, the second part. And finally, we have Shazam, the latest film from the DC, Worlds of DC, DCU, whatever the hell you want to call it. Directed by another horror director, just like Aquaman, this time, though, David F. Sandberg, who is known for Lights Out and Annabelle Creations, starring Zachary Levi, Mark Strong, and a whole cast of characters. Excuse me. Most of whom are fantastic. The kids in this movie are especially really good. You really get that sense of family that the dynamic between all of them creates, and they're very believable. They're very real. Asher Angel gives a wonderful performance as Billy Batson. Zachary Levi is great as playing Billy's alter ego, the title character of Shazam. What I will say, where the movie starts to falter a little bit, is in the villain, Mark Strong, where he's a little bit run-of-the-mill. We've seen his character time and time again, and I will say the CGI isn't that great. There could have been some better work done with practical effects, but in a big blockbuster, I still had a lot of fun, and I highly recommend Shazam. So go check it out, and let's go back to the show, shall we? All right, guys, welcome back to the Who Cares Anyway podcast. We are live once again, and I guess for the rest of the show, I'm sort of going to be acting like it's a little bit professorial. So I guess Lon Harris better watch out because there's a new professor in town.
Call him Dr. Dohmen, bitch.
Damn right. Oh, God, yes. So, something I wanted to do, kind of in honor of Shazam, which I did talk about for a hot second, and again, mulling it over, I really like that movie. I really like it.
I need to see it.
You do.
I need to see it too because I have a feeling it's not just going by your own reaction, but also like I've heard a lot of great things about this movie. Like if you're a superhero whose name was Captain Marvel at some point or another, it's been a good month for you.
Well, financially, sure. Critically, that,
Well, I mean,
it depends.
It's not rotten, so that's still a win.
No, and not to say that Captain Marvel should be rotten, but I also realize that I'm not the target demographic for the movie.
Fair enough.
Because, as Jordan Peele so eloquently put last week, we've seen that story that was made for me. So now we need to see new stories, new perspectives. And I'm all for that. I want that. I welcome it. But I also want full competence, if that's a fair critique to say.
Yeah. Doesn't matter who the story is for, it should still be interesting.
Exactly. Which is, I think, safe to say about the company that made the original Captain Marvel, now called Shazam. That is DC Comics. They've been around for the better part of 70 years, roughly now. And this week, Batman, their star, one of the first names you think of when you think of DC, turned 80 years old. Imagine that. My grandparents on my mother's side didn't even get to live to be that old.
That's crazy.
Oh, boy.
That's nuts. And we have seen so many interpretations of the character Bruce Wayne, and we'll get into a lot of those as we get into this conversation. But Ryan, what is it about DC that attracts you to their stories, to their characters, to whatever?
So my dad collected comics through basically like late 80s, early 90s. And this is like the era that Spawn started being a thing. I said that really weirdly, but that was when Todd McFarlane started Spawn. So my dad had like all those comics at the time. And Batman was going through a new, darker run. Deadpool started. My dad had the first issues of Deadpool. So I read a lot of those like classic dark 90s comics. And the one that stood out the most to me, though, was Batman. And I can't remember specifically the run that was happening at the time because I haven't read these comics in so long, but they stuck with me because as like a little, 8-year-old kid, and once my mom found out that I was reading them, she's like, what is this? Why is he reading these evil comics and all that? But it was dark and it stuck with me. I was like, wow, this is awesome. I thought it was so cool because instead of being like the Avengers, which was the other comic, those were my two favorites at the time, were the Avengers and Batman. And the Avengers was fun because it was the team up and you got to see all these characters working together, all these heroes working together. Batman was awesome because he was brooding and he played on the level of... That's why when people say Batman doesn't kill, read the early 90s comics. Batman kills. Batman absolutely kills. Yeah, exactly. And that was what... He was on the level of the villains that he was fighting. And they weren't always some, like the Avengers were always fighting Galactus and Doctor Doom and all of that. No, he was fighting everyday criminals, and it was just interesting to see. And that carries through, I think, to a lot of DC of just a much bleaker look at the world. And we tease the DCEU for not being able to lighten up and for kind of taking itself too seriously. But when done right, i.e. a lot of the movies we're going to talk about tonight, that's what makes DC so good, is just the grit and realism that is brought to something that's ultimately very unrealistic, and it's relatable, and you want to keep reading. You're compelled to keep reading because there's something incredibly unsettling about most DC comics, even for a lot of Superman runs, which he's generally seen as a lighter character. But again, that was another one that happened in the early 90s, was the death of Superman. You read that comic, it's unsettling.
You're fucked up.
Yeah. Especially when you're reading them at like 8 years old. Yeah.
And Nico, what was it about DC that attracted you to them?
So I actually consider myself to be more of a Marvel guy, but my first comic was in fact DC, and I remembered the exact issue. It was Lego Bionicle issue number 4, Beware the Bow-Rock, because DC had a partnership with Lego Bionicle's franchise to do a comic book run for, I don't want to say all of the 10 years that Bionicle was a thing, but a good majority of the time. Throughout that decade, and I loved following those characters very much. I guess you could say I was Lego's target demographic, because I just loved building their products, and I loved the idea of a 6-person team of multicolored characters each with an elemental power. I love the elemental heroes, and then I kind of fell off a little bit after Bionicle ended its run as a toy franchise. And then I kind of fell back in with Injustice, the video game, and I fell in love with a lot of their alternate universe storylines, specifically Earth 2 from the New 52 run. I really loved following those versions of the characters that we're used to. Like, I love the idea of Thomas Wayne getting to be Batman as opposed to Bruce, and Kara Zor-El being raised sort of more like a daughter of Superman and Lois Lane, as opposed to the cousin, and then like her family gets wiped out by Apocalypse, and she and Huntress, who is Bruce Wayne and Catwoman's daughter, going on their own adventures throughout the multiverse, and just to name a few storylines. But I'm if I could say a character that I really relate to with DC Comics, it's the Lanterns. Again, I love the heroes with an aspect of color to their storyline, and again, you've got an emotion for every different color of the rainbow. That I really like that. There's something that draws me to it, and the ability to create things with just this power ring. You create your own power. Essentially with that ring, and again, the artist in me loves that. It's like those were characters designed specifically for artists to fall in love with, because you either save someone or you hurt someone just using your mind and this ring and your emotion. You're literally pouring yourself into the battle you're a part of, and I really like that. And of course, the Lego games. Those are always nice to play with, because you get to learn more about sort of the unknown DC characters, because they like to throw in all those characters in there to let you know more about the lore as unlockables. And the animated movies that DC has been doing just straight to DVD, those have been perfect the past couple of years. Those have been great. Like War for Atlantis is the reason why I'm not a big fan of the Aquaman movie that just came out, because I had already seen that story told, and I liked it very much. And so then when Aquaman came out, I was like, okay, this is kind of just a rehashed version of something I've already seen. So like the animated movies are doing a lot that the live action movies are kind of late to the party to do.
That's a fair point. And again, I'll touch on that for 2 seconds. Jonathan Peck, I see you're in the chat, and you said that the reason you love DC is because there's a rich mythos and the history of the world building that they have in the comics, and that's
true.
Yeah,
Very
I mean,
true.
Holy crap! And that's why I love the stories of DC, is because the stories themselves are very, very dark, but also very impactful. They stick with you. I love the characters. I love seeing, very unique twists on tales as old as time. I mean, something like The Killing Joke. That's literally my top 5 favorite comics of all time. I adore that story. And you know what? say what you will about the first 45 minutes of the movie. I don't think it's that bad, but whatever. That adaptation, once the actual Killing Joke part starts, is perfect. It is perfect. You know, and it's perfect, at least for me, because I get to see one of my favorite interpretations of the Joker, Mark Hamill, do his thing. And I get to see one of my favorite interpretations of Batman, Kevin Conroy, do his thing. And it's because I've been able to see how many different interpretations of various characters I can get. That's what I love about DC. It's one of the things that I'm a little bummed that I'll never get in something like Star Wars. You know, at least not to that extent. Because every time that you see a returning character, it's the same character, but maybe they're just played by a different actor or something. So that's why I love DC. And as far as their film work goes, sure, they had a couple of serial shorts in like the 40s and the 50s with Batman and Superman, but those don't count. Those don't count. No, we're going to start our journey down memory lane with a little film from 1966 called, simply, Batman, based on the TV show of the same name. It even had pretty much all the same actors from the TV show, like Adam West and Burt Ward, as the dynamic duo, respectfully. But you also had the Joker, Cesar Romero, who is just a delight, if ever there was one. And sure, is he the best interpretation of the Joker? No. Is he damn good? Yes. You also had the Penguin, played by Burgess Meredith, who, oh my God, that's my Penguin. That is my Penguin. You had the Riddler, played by Frank Gorshin, who, again, did it with just the right amount of campy cheesiness, and it's wonderful. And then, while some people say Julie Newmar is the definitive Catwoman, others might say Eartha Kitt might be the definitive Catwoman, Lee Merriweather is a good Catwoman. Let's just make sure we get that perfectly clear, guys. Come on. Come on. And now I'm going to presume that you two have not seen the original Batman at all.
So here's the situation with me. I had been wanting to see it for a period of time, and then when I finally decided, okay, you know what, I have some time, I'm going on Netflix to see it, they took it off Netflix, and I didn't get a chance to watch it. I missed my window. And so I since then, I've just been occupied with other things and wanting to see other movies, even with this company. Like, I wanted to see Red and Red 2 before we had this discussion, and because it's the busiest wrestling week of the year, again, that had to fall to the wayside.
Fair enough.
But
fair enough.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it. I don't think I ever will either. It's not like the oldest thing DC I've ever watched was the Superman animated show, like before he could even fly. I used to like that show. Well, I still do. I don't really watch it, but it was really good. But I just that campiness, I think I'm too far removed for it to ever interest me. But I respect that it's the roots of what we have now.
And it does lead me to one of my favorite fun facts of all time. Now, in regards to the original show, which had a lot more of the characters that we would eventually see in the movies and the animated show, Ryan, I'm gonna pose a question to you, and I want to see if you can guess this. We never got Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, in the 1960s show.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know who was supposed to play him, by chance?
Ooh, a 60s actor?
And it's someone who would go on to have the career of a lifetime.
From the 60s?
Burt Reynolds?
That's actually a good guess.
That's a good guess.
I'm trying to think of like who would be the right age. No, I have no idea.
I know what you're thinking. Do you fire 5 shots or 6?
Really?
Well, in all this confusion, I've lost track myself. So now you just gotta ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Clint fucking Eastwood.
That would have been an awesome Two-Face. Are you kidding me?
I hate to say it, but that to me would have been the definitive Two-Face.
Probably.
Like,
yeah.
imagine if he had gotten to play that role.
Yeah, because he's got like that type of face anyway.
Because then, in that case, they would have pushed Two-Face to the moon.
Tails, you die.
They would have pushed Two-Face to the moon as like Batman's main villain if Clint Eastwood had played him, as opposed to what we've gotten with the Joker. And not saying the way things have played out is a bad thing, but like with that new information now in my head, like, yeah, Two-Face would be the bad guy after that point.
That's really intriguing.
Well,
yeah.
And plus, and actually, my understanding was because Clint was only working on the Man with No Name trilogy at the time, that's the reason why he wasn't able to do it.
Okay.
Because he got the films that made him who he is.
Right.
Now, if he hadn't, then I don't know.
That would
Maybe
have been
he
really
would've.
interesting to see.
Yeah. So, how's that for a fun little mind blower?
I like it. The more you know.
Absolutely. But yeah, so that's that's the original movie that kicked it off. But it's almost 12 years until we get another adaptation of a superhero that actually successfully takes off. And in 1978, we were told on the poster, "You'll believe a man can fly." And sure as shit, we did. With Richard Donner's 1978 movie, Superman. My opinion of this movie has been a little strange. Because I do thoroughly like this movie. I really do. But I also know that it's a little corny intentionally. Because kind of like how it was when Star Wars came out, this was a movie that was supposed to basically just get us away from that Vietnam era depression and gritty realism and bring back a sense of fun to the big screen. So I understand if everything doesn't necessarily work out like it maybe should, but that doesn't change the fact that I love the performances. It doesn't change the fact that I love John Williams' score. I mean, this movie's great. Nico, what are your thoughts on Superman?
Okay, so
you're about to tell me you haven't seen it, have you?
I have not seen a single Superman movie predating Man of Steel.
Wow.
Now, and it's because of the corniness that I'm aware of that takes place in some of the sequels. And so I was just like, I don't know which ones are less corny than the others up until recently. And I will say that thankfully, Superman 78 is on the DCU app, which, Zadie Smith, thank you for giving me the information to use so I can watch Doom Patrol and Titans. And that movie is on the app as well, so I will definitely check that out at some point, again, after there's no wrestling for me to pay attention to for the next couple days.
Fair enough. And Ryan?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's okay, I guess. Really, the only thing it does for me is, one, yeah, I guess it helps like put DC on the map as far as like films go. It was obviously really popular at the time, but I think it's more importantly it enables Richard Donner to continue his career after a lot of TV and The Omen, and eventually we get Goonies, which is an amazing movie. I love that movie, and that's my favorite Richard Donner movie. But most importantly,
over Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, that's really not my type of movie. I love the Goonies.
Fair enough.
So, but it gives us one of, if not the most memorable theme, like ever, essentially. Exactly. And it basically helps like further John Williams' career because yes, he had Jaws and Star Wars, but I think it showed a different side of him. So I think there's that, but yeah, besides that, I don't really care about I don't like the character of Superman.
Which is funny because I myself don't either. But I do like Christopher Reeve's portrayal of him, and to be fair, I love it more so for the performance, not for the way he was written. Because of course, Superman's a Boy Scout. Unless you can write him well, I'm not going to care. but a lot of the subtleties that Reeves gives, especially in his face, when he's has some just quiet little moments, it really helps the performance, and it really comes off very well, in my opinion.
I mean, without him, you don't get 1989's Batman and all of it. You know what I'm saying? So he did a lot. Don't get me wrong, but I just think that it's not my type of movie.
Fair enough. And I'll be honest, if I didn't grow up with it, it wouldn't be my type either.
That makes sense.
And the same can be said for Superman 2. Another very interesting production behind this one. So, Nico, pay attention. Like, literally, take notes if you can.
Doctor's going to teach you something.
There's 2 cuts to this movie. One of them was the Richard Donner cut, who had been asked to come back and shot about 80% of the movie. And it pretty much was done, because there's just, some visual effect shots that might not necessarily be finished or whatnot. But they had a rough idea. But the studio was not happy with the movie that they got, because the movie takes a little bit of a darker turn. And we explore some new ideas. We explore what it means for Lois to be exposed to knowing who Superman is. Because that wasn't a thing in the first movie. Like, he had to keep his identity secret from her. But then, in the second film, she does learn. And they do have a genuine, loving relationship. But it also puts her life in danger, because now General Zod shows up. And to me, this is the definitive Zod. I love Terrence Stamp, a.k.a. Chancellor Valorum from Phantom Menace.
I was about to say.
As General Zod, and he's wonderful. Plus, sorry to quote Battlefield Earth, but before stupid Loki was trying to yell, "Kneel!" Zod was here, and he did it better. So, one other thing that I actually really do appreciate about this movie is that in both cuts, there's a very interesting approach they take to the character of Superman. So in the second cut, which it was finished by Richard Lester, who is officially marked as the director of the movie, that version focuses a little bit more the internal struggle of Clark Kent and why he should maybe give up being Superman so he can be with Lois.
So kind of like Spider-Man 2?
Dude, I was just about to say, basically Spider-Man 2 takes a lot from Superman 2.
Yeah. And to be fair, and yes, that is part of the reason why I love Spider-Man 2 so much. Because both versions of the story do it very well, and they handle it very maturely, and it's just wonderful, in my opinion.
I will say I do like Superman 2 a good bit more than I like Superman. It is it sounds silly to say about Superman, but it's more grounded, and it's more of an emotional journey that you're on. I've only seen the theatrical cut. Really, what stuck with me, unfortunately, was a huge negative of when Zod and his compadres are blowing everything away for 30 minutes. Sorry, that's just the most boring scene ever. But
which is a little ironic considering it's an action sequence. But yeah,
I know, right?
That is the least interesting part of the movie.
But Terrence Stamp, you're absolutely right, is a great Zod, and I would say probably better. But also that's kind of the fault of Michael Shannon, who's a great actor, but didn't do that great of a Zod.
No, he kind of didn't.
Wasn't much better at Doomsday either. So,
no.
But yeah, no. Superman 2 is better, but again, still, I would rate it just average for me. But
I have a question. Because as I was looking up information for flashcards, and one of the things I noticed was that this film was released in Australia and portions of mainland Europe in 1980, I believe, but then it was released in the rest of the world in 1981. What would be considered the correct answer if that question were to come up?
1980.
People go off of 80, yeah. That's what I thought.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Now, I say that because I very well remember this. Back in the days when I was involved in the Fan Schmodown League, it was when one of the title matches. That was one of the final questions, and we had to test that question like 5 times just to make sure we got that release date right. So that was a fun time.
Back in the good old days.
Back in the good old days when we were all still very new to YouTube.
I still don't know what YouTube is.
Yeah, me neither.
Or what it's becoming.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, don't fucking get me started.
But DC, right?
But DC, yes. Back to DC. So, they're on a roll. Superman movies are doing very well with the critics. They're doing very well with financially. Obviously, Superman 2 is not going to beat either Raiders of the Lost Ark or Empire Strikes Back in theaters, but it's holding up on its own. It's breaking in the bank. But now we're going to move into 1983, where a lot of franchises went to die, in my opinion, and this was one of them. So Richard Pryor is like one of the funniest people to ever live, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen is pretty funny, yeah.
I like Blazing Saddles.
Well, he mostly wrote that. That wasn't him in the movie, but yeah. He just makes this movie terrible. Superman 3. This movie sucks. And they tried to go the Bizarro Superman storyline, and it's really bad. Like, I mean, really bad. Like, insultingly stupid bad. So, Ryan, I'm glad you haven't seen this one. Nico, good luck. Just good luck.
I've never heard anything good about it, so like that's why I've never even tried.
No.
The main good thing I've heard about this is that it's not as bad as Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, but that's not really saying much.
And we'll get there in a moment. What
I will say is I'm a little surprised you didn't go to Swamp Thing first.
Oh yeah. To be honest, I haven't seen it yet.
Fair enough. Neither have I.
So, yes, Swamp Thing 1982, that was a thing. Apparently it has a cult audience, and there is demand for a remake, and who knows? Maybe a remake will bring it back.
It's getting a series on the DC Universe app.
Ah, nice. Speaking of movies that now are in a much better version on a TV series, 1984, Supergirl. From the director of Jaws 2.
What a resume.
Mm-hmm.
All you had to do was say Jaws 2, and I'm like, nope, not the good Jaws.
and I'll defend Jaws 2 as a fine slasher film, but yeah, Supergirl sucks. But here's the main reason why. Because it's not that it's like offensive or anything. It's just boring. Because we're like, it doesn't take place on Earth. It actually takes place out in the world of the DC galaxy, whatever. But the problem is, it's not very interesting.
Which you think it would be.
You'd think it would be, and there actually is a pretty decent cast in it. Like, seriously, Nico, when you're studying this movie, just look up the cast and look up like what films these actors were in. And you're gonna smack yourself upside the head. I'm pretty sure Peter O'Toole is in this movie, for fuck's sake.
I think he is.
And he's one of the greatest actors of all time. So
he probably felt like an O'Toole after that movie was done.
Hey, but
well done. But yes. Now, before we get to one of the best DC movies ever made, let's talk about one of the worst. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Superman wants to talk about nuclear weapons and the Cold War.
This is the one where he's drunk all the time, right?
No, that's Superman 3.
Is it? Okay.
This is the one where I'm drunk all the time while I'm trying to watch it.
I watched, like, back in the day, like, Watch Mojo or something about it. I was like, oh my gosh, this looks like not even a real movie. It looks like a skit.
Like, well, it feels like that. It genuinely feels like that because, granted, we got the return of Gene Hackman, which that should have been great. but it also gave us John Cryer, and this was post Pretty in Pink and pre 2.5 Men, so he was doing nothing with his career at this point. So he was annoying. Then you had, a complete retread of the love story from Superman's 1 and 2 being done again in Superman 4, which makes no sense. Exciting. Oh, yeah. That's real fucking exciting. And then we're introduced to one of the laziest characters ever created for a superhero movie. So there's this hair of Superman's DNA, which, as part of this convoluted scheme to get all the world's nations to give Superman every nuclear weapon so we can throw them all into the sun.
Wow.
I'm not making this up. Much? Well, he wanted to end the Cold War. And somehow the script allowed this to happen. But while this is going on, that hair of Superman's DNA, when it gets, the heat of the sun, whatever, attached to it, it creates a brand new being called Nuclear Man. And you want to know what the difference is?
He is nuclear?
Sure. No, he's solar powered, meaning literally if he's not in direct sunlight, his powers don't work.
Lame.
And
he thrives on kryptonite?
No.
Oh.
He's got long silver nails.
That's it?
Pretty much. He's got all Superman's powers except he has long silver nails.
So this won like 5 Oscars, right?
Oh, yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Okay, I will say something in defense of John Cryer, because this role, and again, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really go off of whether or not he was good or bad in it, but because of the fact that he played a role in a DC movie, that got him a new role on the current iteration of Supergirl on television, where he's playing Lex Luthor. And
but he's not playing it like an idiot.
Exactly, he's actually
fucking
doing
Lenny Luthor. What the hell is this nonsense?
He's doing a lot of justice to the character of Lex Luthor. And again, I believe from the start, John Cryer is one of those comedic actors that can make the transition into drama very well, and he's portrayed Lex Luthor so far as a very dramatic character. And he would not have likely gotten this opportunity to play Lex Luthor on Supergirl if not for being in this terrible movie that DC kind of wishes they probably hadn't put out.
Yeah.
Cash
grab. But I'm okay with this. And do you want to know why?
Why is that, Chris?
Because 2 years later, the world was introduced to someone that they didn't know they wanted in this role. But nowadays, you can't mention the name Michael Keaton without thinking of Batman.
Talk about awesome themes.
Dude.
Goodness gracious, Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman fucking brought it with this movie. It's wonderful. I can't say one bad thing about the music because obviously Prince but...
Hello,
come on.
Nah.
Rest in peace,
here,
bro.
Minnesota.
Hey.
Yeah, R.I.P. But...
but you know what, Ryan? Come join me. Come join.
So good, man. It's just I love Batman, and we'll get to the other one, but Batman Returns they're so good. Batman is the best Tim Burton movie I think I've ever seen. Like, I'm being so honest and so serious.
Fair enough, but see Big Fish.
Yeah. But it's not Batman. But Chris, I don't think you understand. It's not Batman.
This is fair.
No.
This is fair.
I don't know. It's just like, it's so
80s,
good. And I'll just love it. It's like...
See, and as much crap as I give the 80s, like, this is the side of the 80s that I love.
Yeah, it was like the 80s when it was basically almost the 90s, which is what is so good about it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like the music. Michael Keaton, who yeah, if I was alive at that time and only knew him for comedy, I would have been like, what? But he does it so well. I'd say he's probably a better Bruce Wayne than he is Batman.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
And I would agree with that.
But I think he's so good in this role. And, of course, yes, Jack Nicholson. I love me some Jack Nicholson, especially when he's playing the Joker. And while I do not like that Prince song, because that's just not my style of 80s music, sorry. However, the rest of it is just, like, it's basically one of the, if not the best Batman movie out there. I mean, yeah, if I'm being honest, The Dark Knight edges it out, but damn it if this movie isn't amazing. So good.
It's so fucking good.
It's maniacal. It's crazy. I love it.
Nico?
Yeah, Michael Keaton is one of the best portrayals of Batman in live action to date thus far. And I'm saying Batman as in I'm combining both Batman and Bruce Wayne into one thing. I'm not really trying to say he's better at one than he is at the other, but he brings something to the role that just makes you want to watch more of it. So obviously he's good at the job he was given. Jack Nicholson as the Joker, yeah, as we've gotten farther along with more and more Jokers, his name has kind of fallen not out of the discussion, but no longer in first place. But he's always in the conversation. He's always in the conversation.
He's immortalized.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and this. Now I've only seen this movie once, so forgive me if I'm struggling a little bit. But I enjoyed it the first time I saw it, and yeah, there's obviously a lot I've forgotten. I kind of want to watch it again now just to see what I've forgotten, because I did have a good time the first time I saw it.
You know, and say what you will about Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale, and you could be like, oh, well, she screams too much. I like her.
I like it. I think it fits what they were trying to do, or what he was trying to do, a.k.a. Tim Burton.
Exactly. Like, the reason I'm fine with it is because she fits the role perfectly, and she fits in with that world perfectly.
She's like an early, or not like early, but she's like the Batman version of April O'Neil. I don't know. I just like it. I dig it. Yeah, she screams a lot.
Yeah, but you know, whatever. I mean, and plus, as much as I'll kiss the ass of Heath Ledger's Joker here in a little bit, I do just have to say though, this movie actually does have my favorite Joker introduction.
Yeah.
You know, where he's coming off the elevator and he's got Carl Grissom at gunpoint. You know, Jack is dead, my friend. You can call me Joker. And as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
The hat on top of the headphones.
Yeah.
And
I didn't play that one.
Yeah, that's all right.
Oh, I should say this though. While I do like Jack Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker, I feel like in terms of the Joker's wardrobe, this is my least favorite portrayal.
Fair.
Really? Okay.
Fair.
Yeah, I feel like the suits are way too.
You like Jared Leto's look better than this?
Well, I'm just saying. I feel like the
Damn it.
I did not like the suits that Jack Nicholson had to wear for this particular role. I feel like they were just way too over the top.
But I will say, coolest Batmobile out of all. I don't give a shit what you say. It is the coolest Batmobile.
No, I'll actually say that the coolest version of the Batmobile is the interpretation of this version of the Batmobile in the Arkham Knight video game. Where it's
I thought you were going to say the animated series.
No, it's a little more modernized, but with the same paint job as the Batman '89 movie.
Okay.
I'll have to look into that. I've never seen it.
Nice. So, yeah, 1989's Batman comes out. It's a huge financial hit. Biggest film in 1989. It beats out...
If I can give a fun fact.
Yeah.
And then you can... Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say, like, I know that until Jurassic Park came out, this movie, like, made the most money off of merchandising than any other movie, including Star Wars, which is kind of crazy to think about. That
and the entire original trilogy had come out at this point.
Exactly.
That's nuts.
Exactly. And it made way more because people were just like Batman fever, everything. And then, Jurassic Park comes out and it's like also one of the greatest movies. But anyway,
Yeah.
DC.
And I mean, and think about it. This movie beat out films like Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade at the box office. It beat out
True.
so many good films that came out in 1989. So where do you go from here? Now, Tim Burton was given a blank check. Do whatever the hell you want to do with this movie, and we're gonna support it. We're gonna sell it. It's gonna be great. And in my opinion, we got one of the most maligned films in DC history, but in my opinion, it's one of the best. I love 1992's Batman Returns
so much.
Oh my god! And to be fair, yes, do I love the original just that much more? Yes, but holy shit!
Yes,
this movie is fantastic, start to finish. Paul, and all across the board, from the supporting, all across the board with the cast. Hell, Paul Rubens, the opening scene as Oswald Cobblepot's dad. That's a fun little fact. You didn't know that. Pee Wee Herman himself. But Danny DeVito as the Penguin. It's creepy as shit, and I love every minute of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Very creepy.
Christopher Walken as Max Schreck. I love the character. Even
That's
though
perfect.
there's a fun fact, and I'll get to it once we're wrapping up on this movie.
Okay.
I'll get to it. Of course, Keaton is phenomenal in this movie again. Michael Goff as Alfred, he's great. And then we come to Selina Kyle in what is, in my opinion, the definitive Catwoman.
Yes. Goodness gracious, yes.
Nico, come join me in talking about Batman Returns.
First, a quick little self-correction. The best Batmobile was the Arkham Knight version of the Batman 66 Batmobile. I just wanted to correct that.
Okay.
I was getting my stuff mixed up. But yeah, Batman Returns. I love this movie a lot because of the characters within it. Like, having seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia first, and then seeing Batman Returns second, I'm like, that's Danny DeVito? And it really makes you think, damn, that guy has a lot of layers to his acting credentials, and it makes you appreciate him more for.
I'm gonna have to make you a flashcard of Danny DeVito movies to watch, aren't I?
Probably. But the Penguin is a very emotional character that you can sometimes root for, and
Sure.
even the people of the movie itself root for him at times until they realize, oh, he's evil. Okay, we're gonna boo him now. But still, that's a great layer to his arc, is that they try to take this really creepy looking thing, turn him into a man of the people, and it's somewhat straight out of the comics, because that's basically what Penguin is he's a guy who does not look like he should be this successful philanthropist, but they make him one, and he portrays it very well. Selina Kyle, I love this take on her, because in the comics I've never seen her as like a crazy cat lady, but this one they took that and flipped it on its head and made her a powerful, imposing figure who did not want to be pushed around anymore, took her abuser and pushed him out a window. That scene where they're dancing in the ballroom and they're like, are we going to have to fight each other? Damn.
That's honestly, that's one of my favorite scenes in a movie.
It's such a powerful moment that Janine and Ben Bateman recreated it with a meme in preparation for the gauntlet match that happened in last season's Schmodown. Because she's like, are we going to have to fight each other now? And I just loved it. I loved it so much. There's just so much to love about this movie. And again, I'm blanking now that I'm being put on the spot. But I will say that this is the better of the two for Michael Keaton's Batman movies. And I like it more for another reason, because I like that Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne can be more honest about who he is with Selina Kyle than he could be with Vicky Vale.
Well, and I think it's because he needed Vicky Vale to sort of crack him open, and then Selena Kyle could just kind of walk in on his vulnerability to allow him to just be so forward with her, because he's like, I'm just tired of lying, essentially. Like, that's sort of how I read that. But
well,
Ryan,
reasons aside, I like the fact that he's being more honest in this movie, because I don't really like it when people lie in fiction. I like when they can be upfront and honest about who they are, and then they work, and then the story kind of revolves around, okay, now you have this information, now let's figure out how we can develop a relationship around that, if at all.
So Nico's not a big fan of any of the Spider-Man movies. The superhero who safeguards his secret identity probably the most.
I mean, I get why he has to do it. It's just I don't like it when he has to lie to his loved ones all the time, because you see the after effects. People get hurt when he's never honest with them.
Spider-Man 3, anyone? But
Ryan, give us your thoughts on a good movie.
Just real quick, I mean, it ramps up the action, which is cool to see as far as like Batman goes. But I think that even though it was 2 years until I was alive when this movie came out, always Michelle Pfeiffer will be my Catwoman, because she's just better than any of the others that I've seen. So I haven't seen the 66 version, and any of the TV versions, but Anne Hathaway and, of course, Halle Berry, whatever. But I don't know, she's just like playful and creepy kind of, and a little bit insane, or maybe a lot of it insane. It's just interesting. It's a lot more interesting. And the interplay, like Nico was saying, between Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer is
wonderful.
It's masterfully well done for an early days superhero movie.
I was about to say, Jonathan Peck, you brought up that it gets better with age, and you know what? I agree with that. I first saw this movie when I was 13. Then I saw it again when I was about 15, and then once again when I was about 16. And then I saw it again when I was about 23, and then I saw it again last year, and I'm just like, God, I'm really coming around on this movie. Because the first time I saw it, I thought it was fine. But then I saw it, as I kept watching it more and more, I started just realizing how deep this movie actually goes.
I've seen these ones more often than I've seen the Dark Knight trilogy. Combined. Ooh. Yeah, because I watch these two at least once a year.
Fair enough. But I know there's another movie you want to maybe go for a couple minutes on, huh, Ryan?
Which would be...
Which came out in 1993. Based off of Batman, the animated series. And what many people would argue is the best Batman movie of all time, and I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
Ryan,
can we just say...
Talk to me about Mask of the Phantasm.
This was the first Batman movie I ever saw, and it has just always stuck with me because, okay, Kevin Conroy is amazing as Batman. Mark Hamill is insanely creepy and unsettling as the Joker. And the overall through line, the plot, the story of this, I was going to say rendition, but that's not really it, like just iteration of Batman is so good. I mean, I love the animated series, but it takes the animated series and just propels it to the next level in Mask of the Phantasm. And I don't know how we didn't get any, not necessarily like a direct sequel, but another animated film right away with Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. I don't know how that didn't happen, because this movie was, from what my dad said, really popular, at least with the people that he knew.
I think it's box office related. Like, this film got a lot of great reviews from critics, but not a lot of people went to go see it.
Like, well, and to be fair, Warner Brothers did nothing to market this movie. They put in no effort.
That's what I was going to say. My dad only knew about it because he was, at the time, just obsessed with Batman. So, and he watched the animated series. So, at the time, he was like 20. But anyway, I just think that it's so well done. The story is very interesting. honestly, even though it's old, I'm not going to spoil the little bit of a plot twist that there is, because I think that it's worth people that are watching right now, if they haven't seen it, to go back and watch it. It doesn't really need to be spoiled here to appreciate it.
The Malcolm Lays of the world, if you shall. Which, not to call him out, but he's in the chat, and he did know that he hasn't seen Mask of the Phantasm. And obviously, we'll tell you right now, please see this movie.
Like, I don't care if you got to pirate that shit. It's worth it. It is so good. Like, I watched it twice while I was deployed because I was so bored. I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch Mask of the Phantasm. Watched it all the way through. My buddy's like, is that Mask of the Phantasm? I was like, you know this movie? He's like, dude, I love that movie. So we sat down and watched it again, even though I literally had just finished watching it. It's so good, man. Yeah, I love it.
Nico?
Yeah. So this is one of those rare animated movies that I did not realize was released in theaters. And so I was like, okay, for trivia reasons, I now have to watch it. And I thoroughly enjoyed it when I did see it. Now, I can't really say much because of the fact that I don't really most of what I would have to say would be related to the spoilery stuff. But, yeah, anytime you put Kevin Conroy in the chair to voice over Batman, and anytime you put Mark Hamill in the chair to voice over the Joker character, you're always going to get a good recipe for something great. So...
Mm-hmm.
The amusement park scenes are just like, that creeped me out as a kid. And like, I'm still not scarred necessarily. Like, I can still go to Six Flags, but when I watch it again, I'm just like, I get the chills, man. Like, oof.
Absolutely. And one final point that I'll say is I'm glad that the movie didn't give the animation too much of a makeover. Because I love the animation of the show.
That Art Deco, like, very dark, very somber, yeah.
And very simple. The color palette is so simple, but it's so effective, and I'm glad that they don't fuck with that. Because if they had, it would have cheapened the movie for me. But
it would have felt like something different instead of a continuation of the animated series, which it essentially is.
Exactly. And the last thing that impressed me, shall I say, is that just when I thought I would never be happy with a story that cock teases something about Bruce Wayne for me, but actually does it in a very clever and effective way to give me a what if for his life, I'm glad that how the movie tackles that. I'm glad they did how they do.
Mm-hmm. True.
So
it does what it can with its runtime, I would say. Yeah.
Exactly. Unlike a movie that came out 2 years later, which I will somewhat defend.
These aren't real movies.
I will somewhat defend 1995's Batman Forever. Now, going back to Batman Returns. So, that movie was supposed to be very different, actually, than what we got. Part of that story was supposed to include, in addition to everything that we got, it was supposed to introduce the character of Dick Grayson. And it was supposed to actually have the character of Max Schreck gone. And in its place, that storyline was supposed to be about Harvey Dent's fall to madness and becoming, by this point, Two-Face, which we get in this movie, but not the Two-Face we were expecting, because how Billy D. Williams turns into Tommy Lee Jones, I will never fully understand.
And how you just, in no universe whatsoever, can you imagine Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. It just doesn't work. Like, it is the most awkward performance I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It creeps me out for all the wrong reasons.
Well, and actually, and it's funny I say that because there is one scene with Tommy Lee Jones that works for me. And that is his very opening moment. When it's just him and the security guard, and he just has that beautiful little monologue. You know, that one man is born a hero, his brother a coward. Babies starve, politicians grow fat. Heroes are martyred, and junkies grow legion. Why? Luck. Like, a scene like
Except
that.
he goes over the top with it.
And that's unfortunately what happens throughout the rest of the movie. See, that to me was the perfect amount of over the top. But if he had just stuck with that level instead of going woo ha ha ha, you know, I would have liked it a lot more. I say, Nico, you want me to do that one more time for you?
We're good.
Okay. Wah ha ha. Anyway,
my nightmares.
Oh dear God.
But yeah. So, I think about these movies, and I think about this movie in particular. Now, the theatrical cut, the version that everyone saw, no defense. I'm not gonna bother. But I used to have this 4-pack, which had all 4 Batman movies from Burton and Schumacher on it. And on my edit, on my DVD, there was it was basically like a producer's edit where they included about, I want to say, like 15 more minutes of scenes that basically explain how Bruce is slowly reliving his guilt from the night of his parents' murder because of what happened at the circus to Dick Grayson. And it's adding such a new layer to the film. And it actually gives Val Kilmer some good moments of acting. And there's some beautiful visual imagery going on. Which, of course, then it cuts to fucking Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones basically being gay lovers. Which, granted,
they did the best they could with the direction they were given, I think.
They did. And,
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Nico. Go ahead.
No, I was going to let you continue, and then I was going to say my point.
Okay. I'll finish this up. So, whenever Jim Carrey is not in the suit,
yeah,
I actually like him. Like, hell, even in the scenes like at the dinner party where he is literally copying Bruce Wayne's movements, like that to me is so effective. But it just doesn't work, especially when we have like right at the end of the film where he has this big moment of like, well, if knowledge is power, then a god am I. He basically he lets out his inner Cannibal Corpse voice, and I'm just like, oh, Jim, baby, no.
But there's a thing called a director, and he's supposed to tell you when you have a bad take, because you don't know, because you can't watch yourself. He's not having an out of body experience seeing what he's doing. I guarantee you, he ended up seeing that later. He's like, thanks, Joel, for telling me. Fuck that one up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. So Nico...
and Tommy Lee was like, I'm out this bitch. I'm doing Men in Black.
So here's what I'll say now. This, in my opinion, is the worst of the 4 Batman movies of that era. And
wow.
And I will also say that Jim Carrey is not the reason why it is the worst of the 4, in my opinion. I feel like I just expect Jim Carrey to go over the top with a lot of his roles, and this is just, in my opinion, getting classic Jim Carrey, and he's giving his all to the role, and I can appreciate that. Tommy Lee Jones, I feel, him somehow he transformed from Billy D. Jones. I can't say anyone's name anymore. Somehow he transformed from Billy D. Williams into that monstrosity of a Pinkberry come to life. It didn't work for me. And also, Val Kilmer, I just find very boring in the role as Batman. I feel like
more than George Clooney. Goodness gracious.
Well, and as we get into Batman and Robin, I'll say that like the ridiculousness of it is why I have it ranked above Batman Forever, because at least it went so over the top that it's bad that it's good, in my opinion. But in this case, Batman Forever is just kind of boring. It's forgettable with a lot of the directions it goes in. Like, I completely forgot that this is where they introduced the Robin storyline up until we started this discussion, because that's how we got to Batman and Robin, and then I had to put 2 and 2 together. So the fact that I didn't remember that It just shows that it's not a great movie. It's not memorable, and I've broken Chris.
Chris, any thoughts?
Ryan, get yours out right now before I go on my rant.
Look, I just don't understand why. Like, okay, I actually think Val Kilmer is a pretty good Batman. That's what I'm just like. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is like George Clooney was so out of his league insofar as he was not meant to play Batman ever. Not ever.
Maybe
Val
not
Kilmer
that
makes
version.
sense in the
Bruce
role.
Wayne?
No version.
I could see
George
it.
Clooney is.
George Clooney could play a very good Bruce Wayne, but he couldn't play a good Batman to save his life.
I could see George Clooney as a Thomas Wayne Batman,
Ah.
but not as a Bruce Wayne Batman. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. Like, in any version, like, in my mind.
I mean,
obviously,
you know,
opinions are everything. But
let's. So yes,
but hold on, let me just finish my thoughts, and then I'll get right back to you. All I'm gonna say is I don't hate the Jim Carrey Riddler. The suits, a la the entire Joel Schumacher run, are ridiculous. They're unbelievably stupid looking. Every single suit, across the board. Maybe Alicia Silverstone looks kind of attractive, but besides that, everything else is just ridiculous. Everything's over the top. He doesn't know how to direct. I don't care if you try to like hold up some of his other movies as he knows what he's doing. No, I'm sorry. I don't think that he does. He kind of just gets a little bit lucky sometimes and makes some acceptable films. But these movies don't deserve to live, and especially not Batman and Robin. I don't understand how you can say that Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman just reading off of a teleprompter, I'm pretty sure, how that's better than this is hard for me to agree with.
Because they went so ridiculous and over the top with it that I at least have a reaction of laughter out of it when I see it.
Yeah.
I'm feeling an emotion, whereas with Batman Forever, again, I forgot so much of it, and so it therefore did not cement itself in my brain as a good movie or a movie that was even worth remembering.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I just don't. I'm not the type of person that can laugh at bad movies. Like The Room, I tried that. It just doesn't. I can't do that. Like watch with people and it's funny thing. I just can't do that. It doesn't work for me. So maybe that's why I think like Batman and Robin just has zero redeemable qualities. But I understand what you're saying. That makes sense at least. Chris, after you've done having your seizure or whatever, blackout, whatever.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the movie that killed comic book movies. This movie killed a genre for a short amount of time. But it took 5 years for studios to finally take comic book movies seriously because of the damage this movie caused. And it's not just because we had lines like, "Tonight's forecast, a freeze is coming," or because we had lines like, "Let's kick some ice." But because we had moments where Batman crashes through the roof of a building and just says, "Hi, Freeze, I'm Batman."
Yeah.
What? No, George Clooney, who is one of the best actors of the past 25 years, fucking miscast if ever there was one. Yeah. And again, Ryan, I am one of those people who would tell you, oh, Joel Schumacher actually has made very good films. But you know what? Fair enough. Because this movie shouldn't fucking exist.
Yeah.
This movie was literally created to sell toys.
I mean, can you say Batman credit card? Like,
a bad credit card! I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
And
Thank
the
you,
worst
nostalgia
resurrection,
critic.
the worst resurrection of a 1966 Robin line, which is
Holy Rusted Metal Batman!
This makes no sense. I don't get it.
But you know, the ground, it's all metal, you know? Holy!
Like,
but you see, the reaction Brian is having right now.
But not while I'm watching it. That's the thing. I'm laughing because Chris is so pissed. Like, it's not funny when I watch it. I'm just like,
it's just annoying. It's just painful. Like, literally, the whole time. When Poison Ivy makes her big debut at the auction. And it's all sexual, and it's, there's gorilla suits, and it's, tribal dancers, and sexy men, and glitter everywhere because it's super gay!
Which I don't know whoever thought Uma Thurman, besides Quentin Tarantino, was sexy. I don't know.
I don't know. But literally, the whole the way it's shot is awkward. The way it's edited is awkward. The way it's acted is awkward. The movie is literally just an awkward experiment of how awkward can you make a film before you're just left stabbing your fucking self because you're just like, what the fuck am I watching on the fucking screen right now? Oh my god! And you want to know what the best... Actually, sorry. And you want... Hold on. To get my mind off Batman for just 2 seconds, let's rewind to Batman Forever. Nico, look me in the eye and tell me that Kiss from a Rose is a bad song.
It's not a bad song.
No.
Thank you.
I just forget that was in either of the movies.
Back to a movie that I absolutely despise. And the story makes no fucking sense.
It's the easiest movie to make fun of.
Barbara Gordon's introduction is insulting. Because first off, she's Barbara Gordon, not Barbara Pennyworth. What the fuck is that nonsense? Plus, if you are going to make her British, then give her a fucking British accent, Alicia Silverstone. Is that too much to fucking ask? Also...
No, she's a good actress. She could handle it.
Sure, she could have handled it very easily. But no, for some reason, Joel Schumacher said, no, we just got to make toys. Also, costume changes. How many times did they change costumes in this movie? Like 3-4 times? Why?
And none of them look that good, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, none of the costumes in this movie look good. And they had the ability to make them look good.
And you want to know what the best part about this movie is? The fact that it was setting up a sequel where we would have gotten the Scarecrow.
Look.
What?
So try to picture that.
But he was he got handed the easiest task in all of humanity. Like, he didn't make a great first movie. Okay, you're allowed to mess up. No one's perfect. You got handed another chance to make a good Batman movie, which shouldn't be that hard because there's a ton of material for you to work off of, and you can't get it right. You have all these rich characters to work with, and I feel like he didn't take that movie seriously. I really don't think he did.
No.
I think he just showed up and he's like, say these lines once or twice. We're going to make this movie as quickly as we can and get the F out. And like you said, make money off of toys.
Now, the one thing. Now, Nico, in some ways, I almost can actually agree with your sentiment of putting this above Batman Forever for one reason. Everybody involved apologized for this movie.
True.
Many
it's sad
times.
They had to, but
it's sad they had to, but you know what? I'd rather you do it and you do it earnestly than you not do it and treat everyone like they're a douchebag because they feel like they got gypped. So, fair enough. Are there any points anyone else would like to make before we move on to the next movie?
You covered it, man.
I'll say this. I like this movie more than Batman Forever because, in my opinion, Batman Forever was so bad it was boring. Batman and Robin is so bad that it's laughably good, in a weird, twisted sense. But I will say, I feel like if he gave George Clooney another chance as like maybe an older Bruce Wayne teaching
Terry McGinnis or something.
Terry McGinnis, I feel like he would knock that version of Batman out of the park because George Clooney's not a spring chicken anymore, so therefore he's got a lot of life experience that he could pass on to someone in a futuristic version of.
So basically, when they inevitably make Batman Beyond, you want George Clooney.
I feel like he'd bring something special to that role.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda, but probably not gonna, and I'm okay with that. Because everything that you just said about Batman and Robin is actually what I'm willing to say about the next movie that I'll quickly talk about because I'm pretty sure neither of you have seen this, Steel. also from
I want to see this.
1997.
I want to see this. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Shaquille O'Neal as a mass vigilante with a hammer.
Couldn't care less.
Oh my god, it's so fun. It is so stupid.
So, the character of John Henry Irons is a character in DC mythos that really intrigues me. Like, this is someone who was essentially inspired, or at least the way I've seen it portrayed in modern day, someone who was inspired by Superman and decided to use modern technology to become a Superman in his own right. And
Basically.
he did it in his own unique way. He created a suit of armor and a hammer, and like he tries to follow the truth, justice, and American ways that Superman passed on to the rest of the world. Now, I don't know if I can say that Shaquille O'Neal knocked that particular portrayal out of the park, because I have not seen the movie, and considering how much shit this movie gets, I really doubt that he managed to pull that off.
No.
But if there were ever, but I still want to see if he came close at all.
Now, Chris, before you, like, as you get into it, is it Shaq's fault that it wasn't good?
No.
Okay.
No. It's the script. The script is terrible. I mean, for God's sakes, you have Shaft in this movie. You have Shaq and Shaft. How can you possibly go wrong? Except, the script sucks, the directing sucks, and Judd Nelson, who actually gives a fun performance as the villain, there's not a lick of menace to him.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, because I kind of like Judd Nelson. I kind of wish the 90s did more with him.
Yeah,
But
he never got much doing.
He never got much after, Breakfast Club and fucking St. Elmo's Fire, so. But alas, what are you going to do? And now we're going to skip ahead 5 years to a film that nobody realizes is actually a DC film. But this is based on a graphic novel that was published by DC Comics and is, in my opinion, a kind of underrated flick. Road to Perdition.
Never seen it, but I need to.
Yeah,
It's on my list. It's on my list.
It's been on my list for years, man, and it's like,
Dude,
I just never make it.
Because you know how you mentioned that you love crime drama films.
True.
This is your movie, man.
Okay.
Tom Hanks basically plays this, mobster who works for Paul Newman. And, essentially, that winds up becoming a cat and mouse game that involves a young Jude Law, a pre-Bond Daniel Craig, and it's a really fun time.
Well, I'll have to rent this one then, because that sounds good.
And I forgot to mention, Tom Hanks is on the run with his son in this movie, so it's a nice father-son drama as well.
Who directs? I'm just curious.
Sam Mendes, I think.
Sam Mendes, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. I need
Actually,
to
yeah.
get
So, speaking of also pre-Bond.
Yeah. Right.
Wow. So, yeah, I love this movie. Except I do need to rewatch it. But so there's that. As we now move on to what I will definitively say, ladies and gentlemen, is the worst, and I mean the worst DC movie of all time. It's worse than Superman for the Quest for Peace. It's worse than Batman and Robin. It's the movie that set women back 50 years, ladies and gentlemen. Catwoman. Oh, this movie is offensive.
At least she got an extra $1 million for Swordfish, though.
500,000, but yeah.
Okay, close enough.
Close enough.
Goodness gracious.
Halle Berry, you are one of the most talented actresses in Hollywood. You have the ability to blend into characters. You have the ability to create your own characters. You have the ability to just stand out so well in a film.
She was already Storm, for fuck's sake. Like, goodness gracious.
And you know what? Even though a lot of people give her crap for the first two movies, I like Storm.
She's great, yeah.
I think she's good.
Yeah.
So, what the fuck were these people thinking? Now, first off, I believe this movie was directed by a dude, so that's problem
Pete
number
off. Pete off is like so he's got like one name like Cher.
Yeah. So there's problem number one.
Like McG.
Problem number two. What is our villain's big scheme? Oh, she's going to use makeup to give people super skin. That's offensive.
Deep. That's deep, dude.
That's gross. Like, wow.
Well, I think it was like the cream. Is the less you use it, the worse your face gets at a rapidly increasing rate. So it was like she was trying to financially destroy them by creating a dependency on this facial cream. I'm going based off of what I remember from the Honest trailer that Screen Junkies did, which I think is just one of their best things they've done to date, because like it shows here's every reason why I don't want to watch this movie, but at the same time kind of want to just torture myself a little bit to see how bad it actually is.
Yeah, and it's awful. I mean, like, I honestly don't want to say anymore, but okay.
Chris, here's the best part though. Redemption was close on the horizon.
It was close on the horizon. So, but before we get there, I'm just going to make one last point about, again, one of the worst scenes in any movie I've ever seen, where Patience, because we can't call her Selena Kyle for some fucking reason in this movie, goes to see this crazy cat lady doctor who knows all about the Catwoman powers and whatnot. And she tries to explain that, she went around trying to tell all kinds of universities and all kinds of places of higher learning about the Catwoman and about what the cat god powers can do. And she said that they dismissed her because of male academia. No, they dismissed you because you're a fucking crazy person.
Psycho, yeah.
Anyway.
So it sounds
like patriarchy, right?
It sounds like this was basically Catwoman in just name only and nothing else. Like, it sounds like someone just wanted to make a ridiculous movie and just wanted to put the name Catwoman in front of it to make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Name and tight leather pants. That's about it.
Yep.
And that basketball scene, by the way.
Oh, don't fucking get me started. But Ryan, you did mention that redemption would be on the horizon.
Our Lord and Savior, Christopher Nolan.
With a movie that I personally, I like. I don't love it like everyone else does, but I still appreciate it. I still quite enjoy it. And that is 2005's Batman Begins.
Okay,
Ryan?
Wait, to interrupt the lesson real quick, we're skipping over A History of Violence and Constantine.
I
mean, I haven't seen them.
Well, to be fair, Nico, I do actually have them both lower, but I have them beneath.
Oh.
Batman Begins, so.
Might have gotten the years mixed. Might have gotten the release dates mixed up, but okay.
That's all right. Ryan?
Keanu, nobody cares about him anyway, even if he was before. Just kidding.
Ouch.
No, but honestly, Batman Begins. Look, best thing about it is it gets Batman righter than anybody else has. And I just expressed my love for the Burton films. But what it doesn't have is the same approach. And it's not even the realism. It's just the respect for the character. Exactly. The attitude towards the character of... In the past, it was about... For the Burton films, it was about the spectacle. And there's certainly plenty of that in the Dark Knight trilogy. But in Batman Begins, it's a character-driven story. It's a Christian Bale-driven story. And as one of the greatest actors, difficult to work with or not, he's one of the greatest actors of our generation. I know, right? Hey, if I was
God, for you!
I would probably freak the fuck out if I was working on that shit, too. Fucking McG-ass motherfucker. Yeah. Sorry to curse so much, but anyway. Chris Nolan.
Fuck you.
Is my favorite director. Inception is my favorite movie. Chris Nolan can do no wrong in my eyes, so I'm biased for sure. But
we'll get there later.
Ra's al Ghul, man, Liam Neeson just kills it, dude. Everybody just kills it. Cillian Murphy, oh my gosh, he is so good as the Scarecrow. There is nothing wrong with this movie. Katie Holmes should have been in The Dark Knight. I am so sorry, Katie, that you didn't make it. But, I'm sorry, I don't like that joke. I don't think she's that good.
And to be honest, I'm not a fan of the character at all.
Well, okay, yeah, sure. There's that too. But Batman needs that driving force because, again, it's character driven.
Yeah.
And it works, at least to an extent.
It does. And to be fair, it's also comes back to one of my issues with Nolan, which is where I just feel like he doesn't really direct women very well.
Yeah, I keep hearing that, except he all of the women in his films turn in career-defining performances. Like, what else has Katie done? Besides marry a Scientologist, what else has Katie Holmes done?
And you know what? No, like, in that regard, you're absolutely right. And
obviously Marion Cotillard already had an Oscar when she stepped into Inception.
Yeah,
but
she had already won for La Vie en Rose.
Right.
But, well, and again, one of the only exceptions to the rule I'd say is Hilary Swank. But that's because, well, she knows how to work off of nothing. I mean, she survived the next Karate Kid. For
she
God's
was
sakes.
already an Oscar-winning actress. So, but that's what I'm saying is, like, I think that I don't personally. This isn't a Christopher Nolan talk, but I'm just saying I don't understand where the criticism comes in because all these performances are good. So that's all I'm going to say. But Batman Begins. What are your thoughts, one of you guys, before I go on a rant?
Nico.
So out of the three in the Nolan trilogy, I feel like this is the best of the three in terms of focusing on the Batman Bruce Wayne character. Like the Dark Knight, it's a great movie that has Batman in it, and it's a great movie because of Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. But in terms of an overall movie, especially an overall movie that focuses on Bruce Wayne and on Batman, Batman Begins is the best of the three. It's an origin story done right. A great villain in Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul. The story of the underworld. Scarecrow brings a fantastic element to help sort of keep Batman distracted while Ra's al Ghul is enacting his plans. I enjoy it very much, and I feel like it's very underrated as a movie simply because of Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker in the sequel.
Agreed.
Fair enough. And literally, my problems with Batman Begins are more so just glorified nitpicks. You know, for example, Katie Holmes. I don't feel her character is written that well. Ergo, she also doesn't really give a good performance. But she is in many ways still necessary to the story. So I just wish that they could have done something better with the character. You know, the flashback sequences, while effective, because of how Man of Steel completely fucked up that angle of its own movie, it kind of soured my rewatch of Batman Begins. Sorry. But
I mean, they're different universes. Also.
Well, they are different universes, but they are literally the exact same structure.
Yeah, but whose fault? Like, which came first? You know what I'm saying?
Chicken or the egg? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I'm telling you.
Well, and you're
Batman
right.
Begins
you're right.
first.
Batman Begins came first, but now,
yeah.
Because I got so burned on Man of Steel, for some reason, and again, when I said nitpick, I'm not kidding. This is is like the nitpickiest of nitpicks, but this is just something that bothers me so much.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, but it does. And one of the last things is, okay, going in, I knew instantly that Liam Neeson was Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
But I hate how the movie repeatedly tries to set it up so that way, oh, he's not Ra's al Ghul, he's Ducard. And I'm just like, he's Ra's al Ghul. Just say he's Ra's al Ghul. That's all I'm
But
asking.
not everyone knew, though. That's the thing. Like, the vast majority of viewers didn't know.
And again, Ryan, it's a nitpick.
Right. And so I guess I'm just playing devil's advocate.
And please.
Another good Keanu movie. Yes. I'm sorry.
Let's say, yeah, you finally saw that, right?
No. I'm just being obnoxious. My bad. But all I want to say to counterpoint the things that you just said is that, one, it was the first one, so they were just getting started, and they finally saved an entire genre, essentially.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sorry, Marvel doesn't happen either without this. I don't give a baker's fuck who you are. Kevin Feige does not get his job if Christopher Nolan does not save the entire world with this movie.
And that's that's why, like, in spite of my childish bitching about it, like, I have to say that this movie did so fucking much. We don't have the MCU. We don't have the DCEU. We don't have respect for comic book movies.
Nothing.
Without this
Our
movie.
culture is entirely different. Like, I want to see the movie that talks about a world where an alternate timeline where Batman Begins never happens. That would be insane. It would be an entire different world. No one brags about being a nerd because they've seen the last 5 MCU movies and that's it. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
crazy.
I mean, shit, we'd all still get beat up because we're nerds.
Well, not me, because I have a black belt.
Chris, I've never been beat up.
I have a black belt. I can just kick someone in the head.
There you go. Nico's never been beat up.
Fair enough. But yes, so then we'll move on real fast to Constantine / A History of Violence, which I've only seen Constantine. I need to see A History of Violence. Or actually, no, sorry, wait, I have seen both of them. Never mind. But it's just been years since I've seen History of Violence. Cronenberg, great movie. Ryan, watch it. I know you like Cronenberg.
Yeah, I like Cronenberg, but I haven't seen it yet. I need to.
So yeah, put that on the list. Nico, I'm going to get you into Cronenberg, so help me God.
Dude, the best starting place is The Fly. Goodness gracious.
No,
so
not doing The
Wait,
Fly.
that's right. You don't like that shit. No, you got to. It's so good.
I'm not doing The Fly.
It's his best movie out of the ones that I've seen, which is a lot of them, except for, I guess.
I'm not doing The Fly.
Nico, I swear to God, I will fly to Pennsylvania just so that way we can watch it together.
Do a Clockwork Orange on his ass.
We are not doing the Clockwork Orange treatment, and I'm not watching The Fly. I would rather run out of my own house for a full mile or two before I saw The Fly.
No Brindle Fly for him. Okay.
No Brindle Fly for him. Okay. And then Constantine, I appreciate what the movie was trying to go for. It just didn't land as well as it should have.
Keanu was the right choice.
Yes.
The script was the wrong choice.
Yes. Very much so.
With a good script, although I think, like, again, talking about in a world where certain things never happen, with a good script, we never get John Wick because I think Keanu gets catapulted to a different level.
Mm-hmm.
He's in this movie came out in 2007, correct?
5.
Okay, my bad. Anyway, none of us can get it right except for Chris. Anyway, I think that if he's good, I think he's the new Robert Downey Jr. in the sense that he can catapult this to the next level. Maybe it's not the Iron Man popularity. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn.
But no, like
I still think with the right script,
you're onto something though.
Yeah, there's a lot more to Constantine because I still enjoy it. It's not as good as it should be, and that frustrates me. I get frustrated when movies aren't as good as they should be, and it's hard for me to like rewatch them. But I still, every once in a while, I think I've seen it like twice, and I fell asleep the third time because it was like I've been up for a long time. But yeah, it's good. It's a watchable movie, I would say.
Absolutely. So yes, Nico, don't expect much for Constantine, but we hope you have a good time with it.
It will be hard to live up to. Matt Ryan has kind of just stolen the Constantine persona in terms of his performances on TV.
Fair enough. And I haven't seen the show yet, but
well, not just on his NBC show, but the character retroactively got brought into the Arrowverse after a certain period of time. So Matt Ryan has gotten to do a lot with the character of Constantine since the cancellation of the show, and I don't know how to respond to this movie pre Matt Ryan, but I'll do my best to enjoy it.
Okay. All right. Let's be honest with ourselves here, gentlemen. Do we have any real thoughts on Superman Returns that are not related to a controversial actor in the movie?
Actually, yes.
Okay, go for it.
Because honestly, I'm almost positive that this was actually the first Superman movie that I saw, and then it's hard because I've only seen it once, but I'm pretty sure this was the first one that I saw. But if not, I definitely read the novelization before I had seen any superhero movie at all. I know it's super weird. Like, I used to read more than I watched anything. So I read the novelization. I was like, okay, this is interesting because you get a lot more into Superman's mind with the novelization. And I thought that I still kind of think, like, I had a huge crush on whatever random actress it is that plays Lois
Kate
Lane.
Mara.
No.
Kate Mara.
That plays Lois Lane?
Oh, sorry. You're right.
No, it's someone else. Yeah, I don't know. She has a weird name. But anyway, she's hot. And that was mainly why I wanted to watch this movie. So I ended up seeing it and having, I'm almost positive.
Kate Bosworth.
There you go. Having nothing else to base it on, I was like, okay, this movie is okay. And really the worst part is just the ending does nothing. Like,
literally,
it goes nowhere. It's a movie that ramps up really well, and you're like, okay, and then nothing happens. So that's all I want to say about it.
It's like when you're starting off having the greatest night of sex in your life, but then it just nothing ends the way it's supposed to.
It won't go. Like, I just don't know what's going on. I'm sorry.
Pretty much.
No.
Pretty much, or yeah.
There's a lot of controversy surrounding people involved, but what really it matters is Brandon Routh got to be in Scott Pilgrim versus the World because of this movie.
And Brandon Routh is also really great as the Atom.
What? You don't like Scott Pilgrim versus the World?
Top 5 most hated movies of all time.
Okay, another show, but I will rant the fuck out of you. Good.
I'll rant the fuck out of you, motherfucker.
So my thoughts are Brandon Routh is great as the Atom in the Arrowverse, which I've already mentioned a bunch of times. Like, a lot of the actors that were in
I'm so happy.
Yeah, a lot of the actors that have been in the bad DC movies of the past have gotten second chances on television, and they've made the most of those chances, and Brandon Routh is one of them.
It wasn't his fault that he was bad, though. I will defend him to the death.
No,
He's
of course
a good actor.
And
he was forced to do a Christopher Reeve impression, essentially, which is the stupidest thing ever. That's like trying to impersonate fucking any famous actor.
I'm going to hell for the joke I want to make right now.
By the way, Chris, I'm a little surprised that you didn't remember the 5th of November.
Again, Nico, it's literally the next on the list.
I swear I wrote a good majority of these in the order they were released in theaters.
And you know what?
That's a great segue, though.
That is a great segue into
because someone didn't remember
for Vendetta, the wonderful film. From 2006. Well, depending on what part of the world you're from. I got it over here in 2006. I had to get it from Mexico. I had to go over the wall. Sorry. That was bad. That was very distasteful. My apologies, Ryan.
Not as bad as his presidency, but that's another discussion for another day.
Anyway. No, like, talk about being introduced to an actor who is now stuck with you for the rest of your life. This was one of the movies that introduced me to John Hurt. And I am so happy about that. He is awesome in this film.
Class act, man.
True class act.
What a great guy and what a great actor.
Like, sure, he lived a long time, but we still lost him too soon.
Always.
He
was acting up until essentially the day that he left us. He's such a great guy.
Pretty much. Ryan, talk to me about V for Vendetta. And, actually, side note.
Sure.
Did Natalie Portman's shaved head do it for you?
No.
Okay. See, because I'm not going to lie. As far as where she, in my opinion, looked the best, I go to the other big movie from 2005 she was in, where sadly her performance wasn't as great. But
Yeah.
But man,
You're breaking my heart.
That wasn't her fault.
That wasn't her fault.
I'm a big fan of her maternity outfit in Revenge of the Sith. Just saying. Anyway, yes, Natalie Portman was my first crush, but I don't necessarily find her any more or less attractive, specifically in V for Vendetta. What is great about V for Vendetta is it's a really good graphic novel adaptation. I've never read the graphic novel, but I say that because the movie doesn't suck. And the reason it doesn't suck is because great performances, great directing, great story. It all fits together. It all makes sense. It all goes in the right order, and you're interested the whole time. It doesn't seem like a difficult formula. I've never made a Hollywood movie, and I'm not saying it's easy or difficult, but for whatever reason, all the stars aligned, and we have one of the most classic, one of the most well-known, specifically graphic novel adaptations of all time, and I love it.
Absolutely. Nico?
I have only seen this movie once, but the one time I have seen it, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love that. If I'm remembering it correctly, Natalie Portman's character was essentially a character who she was well off in this world where everyone else was kind of in need of a rebellion, in need of something to give them back power when they did not have any, and she comes in contact with the character of V, and she finds herself on the run now. She finds herself being one of those people that needs to rise up and have a revolution, so the power can be taken back by the people. And she goes from, and I just love her journey in this movie from becoming. She was well off, and then she becomes empowered in her own right, and she helps V with his own movement of making everyone else empowered. And I enjoy those movies where the rebellion ensues and people rise up and take back what's theirs. That's probably why a lot of us love Star Wars. Is because
I was about to say, so you're a Star Wars fan, huh?
Yeah.
Well, actually, now funny enough, hearing you say it that way, it suddenly made me do a fun, super fast prequels read, right? Maybe we'll talk about it off air, but okay, let's...
Hugo Weaving as Anakin? Sure, why not? But doing his Red Skull German accent, fuck it, why not? Sorry, that's all I have.
I can't put my shades on fast enough for that comment. But anyway... So we have, I believe, 5 movies left, and we're going to move on to what is, in my opinion, the best out of all of them. Now, Ryan, I know you historically once said...
8 movies.
Your...
Goodness gracious, Nico!
Dark Knight, Watchmen, Red, The Losers, Jonah Hex, Green Lantern, Dark Knight Rises, Red 2.
Okay.
Well, we can skip some of those.
But there's 3 of those movies we're actually going to talk about, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're running out of time. We're over time.
We are way over time.
Fair enough.
This is turning into last week all over again.
It's great.
Whatever, it's fine.
Kofi Kingston.
But now we're talking about what is, in my opinion, the best out of these movies, and what is still, in my opinion, to this day, the best comic book movie of all time. Now, Ryan, you once historically said that while you'll never get sick of watching this movie, you have started somewhat getting sick of talking about it, or at least listening to people talk about it.
Which was talking about The Dark Knight, just to make sure we're on the same page. Yes. Yeah.
And I'll never be sick of talking about it.
It's just like, it's so, like, the way people talk about it is what frustrates me, as to where it's like fake, essentially. I'm a nerd because I watched The Dark Knight, not I've read comics since I was 5 years old. You know what I'm saying? Or like whatever, however old I really was.
Well, it's like a Star Wars fan who says, "Oh, I love Empire Strikes Back, but I won't watch 1, 2, 3, or 7, 8, 9. I just watched the original trilogy."
I don't like the prequel trilogy hardly at all, but I still watch it because it's still Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? And like, it's just, I don't know. There's still parts of it that I love. Yeah. But yeah, I'll be super fast about The Dark Knight. Basically, my only thoughts of it is it's a perfect movie in basically every way, shape, and form. But to an extent, yes, I'm sick of like the hype. not because I have to be counterculture because I'm a nerd, but it just like drives me nuts how much like people have to talk about it all the time. Like, yes, we get it. Everybody knows Heath Ledger was perfect and he was gone too soon. R.I.P. All of this, but it's just like, let's move on a little. Let's get somewhere else. Every time a Batman movie comes out or someone says the word Batman, let's not reference The Dark Knight. Let's think about some other things.
Let's not automatically compare it. Please?
Right, exactly.
Like
yeah,
literally,
other shit.
Like literally 2 hours after the Joker trailer dropped. You want to know what the headlines were? Oh,
Yeah.
well, how is Joaquin Phoenix going to compare it to Heath Ledger's in The Dark Knight? It's like, people.
It won't compare because it's going to be something completely different. And people act like the first Batman thing ever. Like they act like Christopher Nolan invented Batman with The Dark Knight when he was around for literal decades before. So half a century before and more. So that's just what drives me nuts about it. But yes, besides that, it's a perfect movie. Congratulations, everybody involved.
I wouldn't call it a perfect movie, but I will.
It is.
I will say it's a good movie that's been elevated by the perfect performance, and that perfect performance being Heath Ledger's Joker.
Hold on. Okay, I said I was going to shut up, but I'm going to say one more thing. The story, man. That's what you're watching it for, is the story. Yes, it's overshadowed. This is what I'm talking about. Not you specifically, Nico, but like people focus on the performance, but it has a story. There is a story there, and it's a great Batman story. Okay, now I'm done.
I love you, Ryan. Nico, continue.
No, that's really all I had to say. Is like I still think as an overall product, Batman Begins is heavily underrated in comparison to The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, I feel like, has been hyped up exponentially because of the performance that Heath Ledger put on as the Joker. And again, it's a great performance. It's a great performance by this one person, but I feel like it elevates the movie higher than his predecessor, and I feel like the predecessor overall is a more fully fleshed out and better product. So again, I feel like one's a better movie, the other one's a better performance that elevates the movie it's in.
Interesting. I respectfully disagree because I think that this is the best Batman story in a live-action film. I think this is Christian Bale giving one of the best performances of his entire career.
Goodness gracious, so good.
I think this is Aaron Eckhart also giving one of the performances of his career. It's not his best because that's still Thank You for Smoking. But
yeah.
Oh my god, he's so great.
So underrated. Yeah.
So great. But again, Gary Oldman should have been fucking nominated for this movie. Maggie Gyllenhaal. I don't like her as an actress, but I thought she was actually okay. Again, they did nothing with her character. She was completely pointless, in my opinion.
It's not all her fault. Yeah.
No. But the script is brilliant. It's tight. And sure, the movie's long, but I don't give a shit. I will never give a shit about the runtime if the script is tight.
I mean, apparently it's still shorter than Avengers Endgame, so...
Ooh. And this comes from the guy who's burnt down on Marvel, so...
I know, it hurts me too.
Oh, goodness gracious, Chris, you were just...
Look,
so controversial tonight.
That's not to say that I'm not looking forward to it. If I'm going to watch it, I'm going to love it, but...
It's going to be the best movie ever made.
I feel like whatever problems you have with the MCU in terms of movies, they make up for with the television, especially with Cloak and Dagger.
I don't have time for TV, Nico.
Yeah, I shouldn't have. That's my problem with the Star Wars universe. To go off on off the rails, it's like I shouldn't have to watch other shit or read other shit to appreciate the movie. Like, again, talk about Citizen Kane. Did anybody say, oh, we can't really appreciate Citizen Kane until you read the comic strip about it, and then you have to listen to the radio dramatization? No, you just watch the movie.
Was that your Trump? Your lips were getting very duckish, and your hands were getting very
animated. No, that was just my, I'm a stupid person in general, and I say a lot of controversial things. I just have big lips. Thanks, Nico.
Ouch. 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 All right, but no. Yeah, because to speed this up, The Dark Knight is in my top 20 favorite movies of all time. Because it is one of the greatest movies of all time. And it's probably the newest film that I actually have in my favorite films of all time list, because I try to look at film from a long game perspective, because as a film historian myself, I want to understand like what is the best of each era of film. And in this current era, I have not seen a better movie than The Dark Knight.
Wow.
I'm
That's
dead
awesome.
serious. So
I don't feel the same, obviously, but that's actually pretty interesting.
You know,
at some point I'm gonna have to give these movies a rewatch, and who knows, maybe my opinion will change.
I would say too.
First off, though, don't marathon them.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, it's worth like watching one a day to kind of like digest it, because they deserve to be seen like,
individually.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I do the same thing with Indiana Jones. I don't watch all of those back to back to back either.
I can't do it either.
It's just that doesn't fit. Each one is so
I don't have the emotional strength for it. Now, something like Star Wars, I can easily do that.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just
Especially
take
the
one.
prequels,
I'll just take one of the trilogies, watch them all at once. Boom. Actually, no, I won't do that. I'll do my crazy machete order. But
okay, Christian Harloff.
yeah,
The unofficial Christian Harloff. Remember that?
hey now. All right,
Okay.
listen, guys. We got 2 more movies that I want to actually cover, because look, let's be honest with ourselves. Do we care about the losers, Red or Red 2, or Jonah Hex or Green Lantern?
None of them are that good, so no.
I will say just quickly about Green Lantern, as a person who's a big fan of the mythos, this film was very disappointing for me.
And
because like I feel like there was so much potential there, and it just did not live up to that potential.
Especially with a talent like Martin Campbell behind the camera making the movie. Like, this movie have worked, but it didn't, which sucks.
Like, wasn't this the next movie he made after Casino Royale?
Mm-hmm.
This was supposed to be the first movie that actually started the DCEU, and it had Greg Berlanti working on the script, who is now infamous for his work in the various Arrowverse shows.
Yeah.
And Love Simon.
And it's just unfortunate that such a beloved character and with such a beloved backstory and mythos behind it. And I'm not even really disappointed with the costumes, because I thought that was a cool thing to try. Might not have worked out in execution, but it was a cool thing to try, having the costumes fully CGI and whatnot. But just the missed potential with having characters who can create anything with just this ring on their finger, and they didn't really explore the full boundaries of it, and had a Cloud as a villain, and it was unfortunate.
And a quick side note, I actually liked the casting of Ryan Reynolds. I think he could have pulled it off very easily.
Same here.
But again, the script and apparently Campbell's lack of direction did him no favors, which is,
and that's
again,
what I was going to say.
weird.
Like, if you have a good story, the costumes don't have to be perfect. If they don't look that great, that's okay. Like, personally, I'm not a fan of the original 2000 version of the X-Men costumes. I think they look pretty lame. But it doesn't matter, because it's a good movie. So, like, if you have a good Green Lantern movie, it doesn't matter if the costumes are not that great. It was just, like, again, bad script, and Martin Campbell said, fuck it.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. Is this the first movie that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively worked on before they eventually got married? So there was a bright spot out of this. And in my opinion, I feel like Blake Lively would make a perfect Lady Deadpool if they were to ever explore that route down the road.
Good call. I like that.
Disney,
Somebody hire this
Disney,
man.
get on that.
Give me a job, please. I need money.
Please.
He came up with one idea. Make him rich.
Yeah, say that's like me trying to get my my show pitched to them. Good luck with that one. But all right. So yes, 2 more movies to go. Now let's talk about we'll talk about going from one of their best movies to what some would argue their most ambitious. 2009's Watchmen.
Blue penis.
Blue wiener. Anyway, no. So, like, blue dicks aside, I will never defend. I will never defend the theatrical cut of this movie. Ever. It's too short. There's not enough that's actually explored. There's not enough detail that actually allows anything to make sense. This is one of those rare times where you need a 3.5-hour movie to actually fully explain why this world works the way that it does. And while I've never really been that big of a Snyder fan, this is one of the times where I feel he got it 100% right.
Yes.
Nico?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Just
for
keep
me,
the blue penis off of your mind, please.
We know that's difficult for you.
That's hard for me though, and
That's what she said.
Because one of the things that I can't stop thinking about in terms of this movie is, why is Dr. Manhattan naked while working with heavy machinery?
Because it's rated R.
That's the worst time to be naked, is when you're around so many moving parts and gears that you could potentially get caught in. And I get that you can regenerate within the snap of a finger, but still, my brain is going to this place that it shouldn't be going to because it's a comic book movie, but it's going there anyway because why are you naked when working in construction? It makes no sense to me. But on the other...
Well, that's like asking Bill Clinton why was he naked while he was running the country.
Yeah, that is a really good question.
aside from that, this is a movie where I have to be constantly reminded of Jeffrey Dean Morgan's existence, given a flub I had last year, in which I did not know he played Negan in Watchmen. Caleb Coho would never let me forget that ever since. So just seeing Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this movie reminds me of the pain and suffering I went through last year in relation to that loss. But he still gives a very interesting performance. And Silk Spectre, is that her name? Played by
yes.
Malin Ackerman, Silk Spectre 2 specifically. The fact that she is a product of rape, but she's on, I guess, good terms with her dad who raped her mom.
But it's a dark, like, Cold War influenced world, so it's not the world as we know it, if that makes sense. Like, it's meant to be effed up, like when the novel itself. I mean, I didn't write it, but I'm assuming he wrote it to make you be like,
yes.
What the F?
So my closing thoughts on this movie. I'm very interested to see what the HBO series is going to do, because, it's going to give you that extra time that you wanted, Chris, but it'll give it in, I think, digestible bites that I will tolerate better, because I am more of a TV guy than a movie guy, and I don't feel like sitting down for 3.5 hours straight to watch a movie when you can just give it to me in like an hour per week, and make
fucking
it
guy.
Weak. Are you trying to tell me you don't like Gone with the Wind? Cleopatra. Man,
Lawrence of Arabia. Bro,
thank you. See?
Bro, do you even Godfather the 7-hour cut?
There's a 7-hour cut of a movie?
Well, it's just...
okay. So, then, speaking of HBO, back in the 90s, what they did was they took Godfather's parts 1 and 2, and then they recut it in chronological order.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I've never watched it.
I've never watched it, but I'm going to get it one day.
It sounds awesome.
It sounds amazing.
I have no idea how to even do that, but it sounds cool.
Can someone do that with, like, every Star Wars movie ever? Just, like, it would be difficult, especially with one of those movies being animated, but it would be worth a try. Just like Topher Grace, you got a lot of time on your hands. Why don't you try that?
Yeah, all he's doing is playing a Christian priest these days, which
But Watchmen.
Dude,
I love Watchmen. I'm sorry. I like the theatrical cut. Yes, the what do you want to like the Snyder cut is better, of course, because I love long movies, man. I love long movies, and I'm so sick of like people whining about, what if I have to go through the bathroom during Avengers Endgame? I might urinate in my pants. Bring a fucking diaper, dude. They sell them at Walmart. Like, you're so annoying. If you can't hold your urine for 3 hours, what are you doing with your life? Like, who
I
goes
for God's
to the
sakes,
bathroom?
Can you see the amount of water that I drink?
I was 8 years old, and I sat through Return of the King in one sitting. That was 200 minutes, 3 hours, 20 minutes, no problem.
Exactly. Like, I don't get it. And if you have issues with your bladder, okay,
Then I apologize, and
I'm very
then make
sorry.
sure that
but
your
that's
seat is
your
located
burden.
at the end of the aisle, so that way you can have a quick exit and entrance.
Exactly. In every theater nowadays, essentially, you can pick your own seat, especially if you're getting IMAX. Like, there's very few theaters nowadays where you can't pick your own seat. Thank God, because I'm glad they started doing that.
Oh,
but
amen.
Yeah, with Watchmen, I think it is so well done. Yes, there's parts that don't quite work fully, but
in either version,
yeah, it does so well with the subject, the source material, which again I haven't read, but everyone notoriously says it's really hard, just like Dune with Denis Villeneuve having to tackle that. I can at least understand it from, because I love Dune, so I can at least understand it from that perspective. If something's difficult and you make a good product, then I can appreciate that, because I think Watchmen is really good. And how it tackles like these Cold War fears and like just, it's a character piece, but about every character. That's what's so interesting. Every character gets their moment. And the acting is just insane. Zack Snyder is not an actor's director.
Mm-mm.
Unless some actor wants to prove me wrong that has acted for him. From what I've seen, he is not an actor's director. But in Watchmen,
somehow they pull it off.
He figured it out because it just has one of the best endings. Like, I love the ending, man. Like, Ozymandias, it's just good. Like, it's not right. It leaves you like sick in your stomach, but it's good. Like, you're just like, dude, I'm going to have like some nightmares about this shit. But it sums up the Cold War so well. Again, I wasn't alive for it, but everything I've ever heard from it, the history that I know is like, no one walked away from the Cold War with a good, like, butterflies in their fucking stomach. And that's what it is. That's what this story is. So I think, like, with context and with, like, can you pause the movie to go to the bathroom when you're watching it on Blu-ray or whatever? Or, if it's on Netflix, I have no idea where it's available. I just have it on Blu-ray, the Snyder cut. Like, it's just good. Like, it's interesting. It's so intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I'd love to see more of it. And so I'm excited for the series.
To quickly sum up my thoughts, I'm not quite as high on the ending, but for me, where it will always sink me is the build-up.
True.
Where it starts off, and then you start diving into this world, and you start, feeling more and more of it, and you start understanding the characters' motives, start understanding why everybody does what they do. Plus, again, you want to talk about an iconic moment of cinema? Just look to Jackie Earle Haley. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
Speaking of performances, man.
Dude, Rorschach is fucking great. As I'm hearing
and
my delay.
He's never really been in that much out. I mean, he's been in other stuff, but not to that level. And
when they tried, it blew up in their face pretty badly. Nightmare on Elm Street much?
Yeah, I have no idea about that, thankfully. But I think I remember him from Shutter Island that he was really good in too, though, the year after.
Well, and the Bad News Bears, the original. Come on now.
Yeah, what's baseball? Never heard of it. It's not football or hockey. So.
Bitch, anyway, you're from Boston. Be a Red Sox
I'm not from Boston, you asshole. I'm from New Hampshire. Get it
right. Fair enough. But I had to make one Patriots cheap shot. Come on, Ryan.
I do love the Patriots.
All right. But yes, so now as we come to the last film, that was actually worth a damn. We come to another one that is one of the most maligned. Thank you. That is 2012's The Dark Knight Rises. So how do you end a perfect movie like The Dark Knight? Or how do you end a trilogy coming off a perfect movie like The Dark Knight?
Not easy.
Not easy. And now, let's be fair. The script or the final product that we got for The Dark Knight Rises was nothing like what we were supposed to have. What we were supposed to have was, presuming that Heath Ledger wouldn't have died during The Dark Knight.
He was supposed to come back.
He was supposed to come back, and as was Two-Face. Hence why they had to kill him off in The Dark Knight, because it was supposed to be basically both of them running around, causing all the trouble, and then we would also get the Riddler,
which would have been awesome.
Which would have been amazing. So it would have been Batman facing his biggest challenge yet. But instead,
Riddler, by the way, in that script that never came to be. Who was supposed to play the Riddler in that movie that never came to be?
Well, because because Heath died, they had to junk that idea, so it never even got to pre-production.
Chris probably had someone in mind, but he never.
He probably had someone like Jim Carrey or Robin Williams, maybe, because those two. Or sorry, no. I believe he did actually have Robin Williams in mind, because Robin Williams was originally supposed to play the Riddler in Batman Forever, but because that didn't come to be.
When he had worked with him on Insomnia. So.
Yeah. So it is what it is. And then instead we got the movie that we got, which, for everything it does right, it undercuts the rest of the other two films, in my opinion. And before I go further into that, Ryan?
I don't know if we've talked about this or if you remember me saying this, but I like The Dark Knight Rises, I feel, more than most people do. At the time that I saw it, it really impacted me. And yes, I am to an extent a Chris Nolan fanboy, but mainly I just really like the sort of dystopian feel that you get. Well, I don't know the exact where it happens in the runtime, but I feel like somewhere in the midway point, and Cillian Murphy makes his return, and they're doing this creepy court of the people, but it's really not.
It's kind of like a dark version of Idiocracy.
Yeah, kind of. Or it's just like Gotham.
Or you mean modern day America?
Yeah, shut the fuck up. Nah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but it's just Gotham going insane, and it's how is this one city that's isolated? It just fires your mind with so many questions about it, and that's what to me is so intriguing, is I don't need it all explained, which some people apparently do, and that's okay too. You're entitled to your wrong opinion, as Kees would say. But it's just what is going on? And then Batman, he has the most difficult personal battle of his life is, am I doing the right thing by being Batman? Which is, I feel like, a question we all would have. If you're beating the snot out of people and you see all of these people close to you getting hurt, are you doing the right thing, or are you putting people in danger? That's a very real question I would have for myself anyway.
And let's also forget the other thing, which I'm glad that this was never actually brought up in the movie, but you can feel it in the subtext all over the film. Who is he going to give this to?
Exactly. Yeah, what happens when he gets too old? He has to wear this brace. What happens when his body fails him completely? And yeah, like you said, I'm glad they never shouldn't have been a sequel. There wasn't a sequel. It was ended perfectly as a trilogy. So thankfully there was no allusion to some Dick Grayson or Robin or whatever, besides the tiny little Joseph Gordon-Levitt bit. But that was for
outside of that, and I actually mean that in a literal sense, should he settle down and try to start a family? Can he even stop what he's doing and settle down and have a family?
Which I don't think he can in this iteration. He's going to go until the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
And that's what's so interesting. That's what he's doing. He's literally going until the wheels fall off. And that's why, honestly, yes, The Dark Knight is very dark and depressing because of the Joker character.
But that's also why it's so full of hope.
Right. And at the end, it's very hopeful. The Dark Knight Rises is relatively depressing throughout, because it makes you realize as a person, nothing lasts forever, and everything you do has consequences, whether good or bad. And you're always going to kind of second guess yourself if you're doing the right thing. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'll just be am I doing the right thing with my life right now? You know what I'm saying? That's a very real thing. It's a very relatable thing. So Batman has never been, to me, more relatable than The Dark Knight Rises, which is why I like it, because of the character drama. And also, I like Bane. I think he's cool.
I'm not going to do an impression.
I know, so tempting.
Nico, why don't you give us your thoughts?
He said he wasn't going to. What happened?
So I do kind of prefer my Bane more masked and luchadorish, but that's just me. But I will say Tom Hardy did give a decent performance with what he was given. I think I've broken Chris again, so I'm just going to...
He wants to fight you.
My main gripe with this movie is I'm still thrown off as to why Bruce Wayne did I'm going to lock myself in my mansion for 7 years and then put the cowl on again after that, and no one still notices, oh, Bruce Wayne comes out of his mansion at the same time Batman returns after being gone for so many years. I really wish someone would have put the pieces together there.
And every time that, Superman saves a building from falling on a little girl, Clark Kent is nowhere to be found. That's just how it always is. Peter Parker's gone every time Goblin is flying through the city, so...
Yeah, but that's different from being in your house for 7 years, and the moment you come out, so does the superhero who's been gone for the same exact amount of time. I feel like
no one knows when you leave your house every time. Does everyone know every time you leave your house?
No.
That's a fair point, but I'm not Bruce Wayne. I don't have paparazzi surrounding my house.
But after 7 years, neither does he. If Lady Gaga didn't come out of her apartment or whatever she lives in for 7 years, eventually people will be like, all right, she's never coming out. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not always going to be TMZ personnel sitting there just, like, watching. Like,
well, I mean, yes, there will, because TMZ are garbage people, but
even that's a stretch, though.
Anyway. This movie does a good thing in that it shows Batman at his weakest and having to come back from that. Bane literally breaks him, and then he has to both literally and figuratively put himself back together and climb out of a literal hole, but also a figurative one, this hole that he's dug himself emotionally into, and climb out of it and get the fight back in him and save all of Gotham before it ends up getting blown to smithereens by a bunch of bombs. The Talia al Ghul twist was a little threw me off a little bit, and that's mostly because I don't think I knew who she was at the time I saw this movie. I wasn't totally aware of that lore yet. It's something I would find out about later on, but Pete Holmes thankfully gave us that great Batman parody of that scene where he's talking about how his suit seals in the flavor of his sexual juices, which is just phenomenally hilarious. And
I'll tell you what order we did it in. Front end, back end, and mouth, and not necessarily in that order.
And one final note. This film retroactively inspired a recent comic book storyline, I think, in that Batman was supposed to get married to Selina Kyle in a comic book run that was sort of towards the end of last year, and they ended up not going through with it because Selina Kyle realizes what motivates Bruce to put on the cowl is a lack of happiness. So if he marries Selina, then he's going to be happy, and therefore he's going to lose the will to be Batman. And in this case, at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, what do we see? We see Batman and we see Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle hanging out in Europe, just happy with each other's company, and he's no longer wearing the cowl. So we get sort of the alternate version of what would have happened in that comic book run that came out last year, as to what would have happened if they had actually gotten together and sealed the deal.
To put it delicately.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, they totally Marvin Gaye and got it on.
True.
But as my voice is about ready to give out, I'll give my final thoughts on...
Bring us home.
on the one hand, this is much like Watchmen, it's one of the most ambitious DC movies. Until we get to the plot twist. Because there, at least for me, unfortunately, the movie just becomes way too predictable from there on. Because you know for a fact that, oh, Batman's going to fly the bomb over the city. But you know that he jumped out right as soon as he was out of everyone's sight because he wanted to pull off the dramatic reveal, but he just set the thing on autopilot. Oh, I'm going to send this thing on autopilot so that way I make sure I survive, and then I can go on a date with Catwoman halfway across the world. And the fact that it took Gordon that long to figure out that Bruce was Batman, that's a little insulting to his character, at least to his character's intelligence, because Commissioner Gordon is a smart character. So he would have figured it out before then, at least in my opinion.
He might have had his suspicions.
Might have, but of course we had no screen time to prove any of that.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing that bugs me about this movie is actually something that I think everyone else loves about it. The score.
Really?
I would, okay. Hans Zimmer won me over with the Dark Knight score, but then he lost me again with Dark Knight Rises. And to be fair, Hans Zimmer, for me, is the perfect example of a hit or miss composer. So either it works or it doesn't. And there is no in between. And for me, it just did not work. But that being said, I can forgive most of the elements. I just don't view the film as highly as I do The Dark Knight or even Batman Begins. It's still obviously very watchable, and if you're a Batman fan, for the love of God, people, go and watch The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
So don't take my word for it that I'm just a little bit of a Debbie Downer on it. Okay?
It's definitely not Hans Zimmer's best score. I'll give you that.
I appreciate that. So, guys, with that, thank you for tuning into this way longer than it needed to be episode of the Who Cares Anime podcast. My apologies. But we actually did have a great conversation for it. So, Nico, Ryan, and for the first, really real conversation between the two of you, outside of our talk about the Star Wars sequels, thanks for not killing each other.
Yeah, I think we did good.
You guys did.
We had just the right amount of disagreements. You can't have everyone agree because then it's boring.
Of course not. You need just the right amount, a healthy amount of disagreement. It allows for great discourse. It allows for great conversations, which which this was.
And honestly, Case and I have come a lot closer to killing each other. So.
Yes, you have, and it's been glorious each time.
And it's hard to fight a person who you can't understand because his microphone keeps blowing up.
Whoa!
Ouch!
Oh, shit. You got him.
Woo-hoo. Brr, 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 brr.
Exactly.
But yes, guys, stay tuned next week when we are going to be covering Star Wars Celebration, and it's going to be wonderful. And we'll actually have a couple of guests with us for that call as well. You know them. You love them. They're great Schmodown reactors who, for some reason, weren't nominated last year for the podcast or after show of the year. We have the Cinefanatics joining us next week on the call. It's going to be a fun time. But until then, Nico, what is the slightly abbreviated, not super short, but just where can the good folks find you online?
Here, I want to watch NXT again, so I'm going to make it real quick and easy for you. Pause the screen. Here's where you can find me everywhere. Just write everything down. Pause the screen right here, and here's where you can find me.
All right. Ryan, where can the good folks find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Clan McLellan and on Instagram at Vintage Sights and Sounds and right here from time to time.
Absolutely. And you guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Stardust, and Letterboxd at Skywalker Dohmen. Please go check out my latest reviews for Dumbo, Shazam, and for the not the Mustang, the Beach Bum. And, of course, stay tuned for more of our Schmodown reactions, which are coming. Stay tuned for our Game of Thrones recap, which is starting next week. I won't be on the show because I'm not caught up, but that's okay. Still going to be a fun time regardless. So, from everybody here at Dedicated Art, you guys know what to do. Take care!
Yeah!
We need a little 80s sound effect.